It's okay, Court, you got it warm now.
Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, July 31st meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. You've all heard this conversation. Next week, everybody wears
Sweater.
hooded sweatshirts, mucklucks if your feet get cold. A little
Wow, we have a
issue
key
that
to the
we've
box.
had here with this room. First item on the agenda is 300 Committee, request to amend Friends of Cove Conservation Restriction. And Jess, I'll bet you're up for this one.
Hello. Yes, so tonight I'm here to discuss a request from the 300 Committee for permission to amend a conservation restriction for a property. It's 1.2 acres on Point Road. It's owned by an organization called the Friends of the Cove Incorporated. They're also a nonprofit organization. The property, as I said, it's on Point Road and it has frontage on Wald Harbor. This is the first request for a conservation restriction amendment that we've ever done as an organization. And they're rare. Once a conservation restriction is approved at the local level and approved at the state level, as you know, it's recorded and we follow the terms of the conservation restriction. In this case, the landowner, the Friends of the Cove, is interested in controlling invasive plant species on the property, Phragmites, which is detrimental to the health of the native plants that are there. And as far as best management practices for this property, we would like to be able to approve that request. That request actually came to us last fall. And as we reviewed the conservation restriction as it was drafted and recorded in 1996, we found that it did not allow for the removal of plants. It essentially did not allow for the type of management that we like to use on conservation parcels so that we can actually protect the conservation values. So essentially what this amendment will do is bring this conservation restriction up to date. The language that we've proposed and that has been reviewed by the state reviewer, Irene Del Bono at the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs. The language is consistent with how our more current conservation restrictions are drafted. So for instance, with permission from the Conservation Commission, the owner could control or prevent and identify disease, insect infestation, or other hazard to the health of the trees that are at the site. They could remove non-native invasive plant species and also have the right to use pesticides. The pesticides have to be designed and applied to affect the target species only and to minimize impact to adjacent non-target species, and preferably applied by hand. That is a provision that the state required us to insert in this case because they're aware of the surrounding vegetation, and the best way to proceed with that, they said, was to have the herbicides applied by hand. Also, there will be the right to control poison ivy and other potentially harmful plant life, threatening indigenous species, and then for safety reasons to prevent injury to persons or damage to property. So that's essentially what the conservation restriction amendment does. We don't foresee coming back again in the future for this type of amendment on this particular conservation restriction. We feel that this revision would allow for the 300 Committee to continue to oversee this conservation restriction and to ensure that the conservation values of the property are maintained.
Okay. Jen? Court.
Yeah, you mentioned that any of these controls that they have, or any method to control invasive species such as Phragmites, the state, is the wording prefers that it's done by hand? So it doesn't exclude in site-specific situations, say the use of sprayers or whatever, although
Right.
I suppose you could interpret that by hand because the hand is controlling it.
Right. Right, so the proposal from the Friends of the Cove, where possible, they would have to propose
Yeah.
that the herbicide be applied by hand.
So that's consistent with what our practices on
Okay.
these things. No other questions?
Okay. Any other questions?
I'll make a motion.
No, well, you can make a motion, but I have a question.
I'll hold.
Okay. I was just, not that I'm a friend of poison ivy, because those of you who've seen me the last month or so realize that poison ivy doesn't like me, or I don't like poison ivy on me.
Right.
But you did say, in your wording, you said
Yes.
something about indigenous species, and poison ivy actually is an indigenous species.
So what it says, should I read that section again, just that one
Yeah.
phrase? So it would include the right to control poison ivy and other potentially harmful plant life and other plant life that threatens indigenous species.
Okay, well, I guess it's just the way,
The way
it's as
that-
if, it's as if poison ivy threatens indigenous
I see.
species, which it might, but it itself is an indigenous species, and it's good wildlife, provides a lot of wildlife food. So I guess I'd like that, the wording
Tweak.
to be changed a little bit, to say you can control poison ivy
Which is in
along, I would say along trails
Along
within it.
trails.
But, you know, if poison ivy is in another part of the lot,
Where there's no public access.
where there's no
say.
public access,
Right.
and it is an indigenous species. I
That
mean,
makes sense. So
poison
if we-
ivy actually does threaten other indigenous species when
Mm-hmm.
it gets out of control. So just change the wording a little bit,
To control poison ivy along trails.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or where there's public access.
And we're, okay, that makes sense. Okay.
I mean, that's your purpose, right? You don't
Right.
want
Yes,
people visiting and getting poison ivy and then not being happy about it.
right. That's the purpose for
Yeah.
the poison ivy provision, exactly, yeah. Okay. Good.
So I'll move that we adopt the proposed conservation restriction amendment as modified with the idea that poison ivy control would be done only along trails where the public has access.
second.
Okay, before we vote, I just want to make one other comment. And I think you made a good argument, but I think it's important for all of us to realize that by controlling these invasive species, we're improving the conservation values of this area. And
Right.
I'm not worried about you, but in the future, I would not want people to come back for amendments that might reduce conservation values.
Right.
The only ones we would entertain would be to
there's
strengthen
a-
conservation values.
A gain, or a net gain.
A
I
net
guess,
gain.
With conservation value.
Right. Okay, any other questions? Okay, motion on the table to approve the amendment as discussed. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jess.
Thanks. And there is a municipal certificate that I
I just put it over
gave.
there to have them sign.
Okay, thank you.
And you want us
Thank you,
all
Jess.
to sign it, right?
I believe we have to, yes.
And we're all here.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jess. Okay, vote minutes of July 10th.
Madam Chair, I've read the minutes of July 10th, and they're substantially correct and move their adoption.
Second.
Any other comments on it? We have a motion, second on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Minutes of July 17th.
Madam Chair, I've read the minutes from July 17th, find them substantially correct, and move to adopt them.
Second.
You've been able to do all this reading because you're wide awake, because it's nice and chilly in here.
No, I did it this afternoon while I was making turkey stew.
Aha. Okay, motion and second on the table to accept the minutes of 17th of July. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Request for determination of applicability. Pinecrest Beach Improvement Association between 23 and 27 Lakeshore Drive, East Falmouth, for permission to clear a path down a right-of-way.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the staff has reviewed the project. We're recommending a -2 under the bylaw and -3 under the state, with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
In accordance with the staff report that outlines the way the cutting is going to be done.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion, a second on the table. Are there any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, if any of you are here for request for determination of applicability or RDA, if it's a negative determination, that means you can go ahead with what you've agreed to. That's kind of like what you want to hear,
A no is yes.
as you say.
I-
Okay, there's a motion on the table, motion and a second on the table to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved, which means they can go ahead according to how they've discussed it with staff. Gerald Husted, 155 Coonamessett Circle, East Falmouth, for permission to vista prune. Jen?
Staff has reviewed the project. We're recommending a -2 under the bylaw and -3 under the state in accordance with the staff report with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So move.
Second.
Any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion is second on the table to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination, which means you can go ahead with the project. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Kyle Cochis, 145 Sherwood Drive, East Falmouth, for permission to pump, fill, and abandon the existing cesspool and install a new Title V sewage disposal system.
Yes, Madam Chairman, we are recommending a -2 under the bylaw and -3 under the state with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So move.
Second.
Any questions? Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion and a second on the table to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Request for hearings under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation.
Got one.
Did we forget one?
Yeah,
Oh.
Elizabeth Danella,
Well,
7 Hiawatha
see, I just
Street.
wanted to see if you were all awake. Elizabeth Danella, 7 Hiawatha Street, East Falmouth, for permission to remove first floor deck and bulkhead, add second floor living room and deck, and to build new first floor deck under second floor deck.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the staff is recommending a -2 under the bylaw and -3 under the state with the resource area boundaries.
So moved.
confirmed.
Second.
Any questions? Any questions out there? Okay, motion and a second on the table to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Now requests for hearings under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are heard simultaneously under the authority of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. Jeremy and Sarah Byer, 37 Gray Lane, Falmouth, for permission to expand the existing patio, install native mitigation plantings and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I will save any of my comments until after Tom's presentation.
Good evening, Tom.
Good evening, I'm Tom Bunker. Could I request that this be tabled till later in the evening,
You may.
till somebody else comes along for
You may.
about an hour? I mean,
You
I'll-
may. If someone makes that motion, then
I move to table till a later date in the hearing.
Second.
all in favor of tabling this to later in the hearing, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
So if we run out of business and they're not ready, then what happens?
Well, then he'll ask for a continuance, but we haven't gotten to that point yet.
Okay.
We're not
If
going
it
to
ge-
cross
if it
that
gets-
bridge
If
yet.
it gets that far, I'll open the hearing, but
Yeah,
Okay.
we're not going to cross that bridge yet. Falmouth Port Condominium Trust, care of Cameron Aston, Building 55, Units 254 to 257, Seaward Bend, Falmouth Port, East Falmouth, for permission to stabilize and revegetate eroding coastal bank area that includes establishing construction access, placement of protected mats, preparation and installation of biologs into the bank, planting of native shrubs, and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'll save any of my comments until after David's presentation.
David?
Yes, ma'am. On
You're up, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. For the record, David Martin here for the applicant. Green cards for you?
Yes. Oh, my. No wonder you had trouble at the post office. This is a record in the 10 years that I've been on.
Yeah, that's what the post office said. Briefly, I'll walk through the project. Construction staging in the parking lot, paved parking out in front of the building. Construction access here is over a lawn area, mowed lawn area, down to the path. There's a section of vegetated area between that and the beach. We intend to hand cut that area, approximately 6 feet wide, place temporary mats, rubber mats down there for the excavator, mini excavator to go all over. Walk down the beach. There's a lot of oak trees that have fallen into the ocean. They need to be removed. They'll be cut flush to the bank. No excavation of the bank to remove the remaining roots. With that area clear, there's an existing biolog stabilization here. So we would tie into that project here and work our way back out. I'm hoping this area will naturally revegetate. We are going to protect that so the roots won't be disturbed. If that doesn't happen, we'll obviously have to replant that. It's predominantly sassafras and small oak, about this tall. That's it in a nutshell.
Okay. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman. Dave, who's going to do the work?
Jeff Norjo. I've worked with him on and off over 20 years. His work is impeccable. It's almost surgical. He's got
I
a
like
lot.
to hear that.
He does.
They'll tie them all together.
Oh, yes, he's been doing this probably longer than anyone else.
Okay, and the
He's
excavators.
doing the install in Penzance, that bank you guys cleared.
Okay. The excavators just to bring the
Pile
material
logs
down. Okay.
and the wood out. It's a mini.
And you're not going to remove the root system of those oaks that you want to take down?
We are not.
We talked about that. It's
They have to be-
anchoring that in.
They have to be flush cut.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
Okay.
one tree, those of you maybe at the site might have noticed, here, it's half scarped out underneath. It's a fairly large oak. We will need to remove that. That's a safety hazard. It's going to fall down in the very near future. We've had a tree person out there. They can remove that by hand.
Okay. Okay.
Tommy?
No questions.
Mario?
David,
Nice to see you again.
we've grown old together.
Thank
friend.
goodness. Right. Don't like
I think
that
this is an
kind of-
excellent project. I really like the idea of soft engineering, rather than, throwing riprap up or something like that. I only have one question. The notice of intent said a mini excavator. Could you go into what we're talking about for machinery and how you're gonna get it down to the level of the beach?
Yes, I could. How would I describe it? It's about as small an excavator as you might see out and about, perhaps 6 feet wide. The weight,
Like a bobcat or something?
Yeah,
no,
it's
it's cousin to a bobcat. It's got the little hole in the back. They need that to move some of the wood off the bank. We can't work on the bank. The bank is so unstable. If
Yeah.
you walk on the bank, you just slough the bank down. So someone will have to go up and cut, obviously, but we minimize that, and then remove the wood.
So
back
you
up.
literally get the heavy equipment down the face
It's
of the
not
bank?
very heavy. No. In this
Not the
area-
heavy equipment.
Yeah, in this area here, it's very gradual slope over at the end. The bank becomes steep as you go this way. Here, it's a comfortable slope,
Okay. Okay, that's it.
pitched about like
Good
that.
project. Okay.
Just an observation, you have some really nice oaks along the top that if we don't do something, you're gonna lose them. So
Yeah,
it's a good project.
thank you, yeah. We've been losing them regularly.
Well, I'd like to reassure Mario that the type of machine he's using is something that's It's not gonna really affect a whole lot. It's not that large, but it is powerful enough to do what they need to have done. As long as the hydraulics are bio,
They are bio.
okay, then I have a good comfort level with that. The one thing that I did notice was that at the top of the bank on those houses, there was some direct discharge from drainage.
Okay.
And it's not the major contributor of what you're doing right now, but the direct discharge, and one in particular off the, as you're facing the building from the water on the left-hand side, there's a PVC pipe that comes right to the top of the bank.
But would that be from the
From
conductors?
downspouts,
Yeah.
from downspouts. And if that could be addressed, I think that might help.
If you're so inclined, please condition that all roof runoff be conducted to dry wells.
Outside of that, I think tying it in, you're gonna really amplify the repair of this. Thank you.
Court,
Nice project, no question.
Michelle.
No questions?
I have two questions.
Please.
One is title restrictions. Is the Bobcat going to be?
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely, title restrictions, yes.
Okay.
No, they won't want their machine in the water.
Okay, well,
And-
you won't be surprised. You wouldn't be surprised, but we have
I
seen
would
that.
not be surprised with some contractors.
Yeah, we
that
have
I've
seen that
actually
in
seen
the
one
past.
going through the water,
Right,
We have pictures of it.
I
Yeah.
have two,
In the
I
water.
have two, but
because I was just amazed.
I will be involved with the construction process, and I know, but
You know to keep
Please.
it out of the water.
please, well,
And
yes.
whoever owns it would probably rather keep it out of
Yeah,
the water
well,
also.
And the machine will, by the way, be living here when it's not going to work, and, yeah, at no time should the machine be in the water.
Okay. I know that seems obvious.
No,
But
thank you for that. Let's
it's,
get that on the
it's
table,
From
right,
years of experience.
right.
And the other
We've
thing
seen it
is,
all.
another favorite here on the board is the term stump sprout. So the ones you're flush cutting, are you just going to allow those to
It's a
kinda
little
grow
bit of a
up?
quandary what you do in a situation like that. I suspect the stumps that we have there now, the stump cluster, if you will, is fully exposed, so that's, and in some cases, it's removed from the bank about this far, and the roots are extending back the network. I'm not confident to tell you whether the roots themselves will sprout. I suspect not,
Yeah.
because the stump is gone.
Well, if the stump's gone, I mean, if it's pulled all the way back, it probably won't, but there's
The
some that
trees-
are probably partially pulled,
Yeah, there's
and if
some
you
that are
just cut
top.
them and let them grow back, it'll just be a bush.
Yes, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay.
That's what I'm suggesting.
Yes, I support that entirely, thank you.
All right?
I think we would do that if we had the opportunity. I think the trees that have fallen down, laying in the water, stumps are exposed.
Yeah, when they're
Maybe.
already, when they're completely pulled out, they're not gonna make it.
Our intention is to have above the biologs to the top of the bank naturally revegetate itself with the biomat, so that would contribute to that.
Yeah. And where you're putting your path across a lot of those, especially sassafras will,
I'm thinking.
If you cut it, it'll
given-
grow right back up
Right, given
again,
the
too.
time of year, the work will take place presumably in September.
yeah,
So that's a good time of year to
yeah.
hope to see it in the
Just
spring.
follow it, just follow it the next spring. and
Absolutely.
Make sure this stuff,
Right, I think we'll look at it for the next spring, see how it's doing. Following year, as soon as it's completely revegetated, we'd be coming for compliance. If not, we'd have to come forward with a planting plan to address it.
yep, okay. Good. Any more questions?
I'll move to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
Any questions from the audience on this? Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Second.
No, we have a motion and a second.
Yeah, we do.
A motion and a second to close this hearing and take it under advisement. All in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thanks,
Thank you
Dave.
very much.
That's yours. If you weren't gonna say it, I would. Okay,
Night, Dave, thank you.
P&B Realty Trust, care of Samuel Blogden and Jane Press, trustees, 162 Associates Road, West Falmouth, for permission to raise, RAZE, and rebuild the existing four-bedroom, single-family house that includes an attached garage, decks with stairs, AC units, porch with stairs, to install a new Title V sewage disposal system, dry wells, utilities, native tree and shrub mitigation plantings, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'll save any of my questions or comments until after Jeff's presentation.
Good evening, Jeff.
Good evening.
Oh, my goodness. No comparison, Jeff.
Just a wimpy pile there. Well, good evening. I'm Jeff Ryther, representing P&B Realty Trust for this fine project this evening. Let me, just turn a little bit here. Here's the address. This is at 162 Associates Road. If you look at the locust map, it's here in the south corner of the island on the south basin of West Falmouth Harbor. And the resource areas here are, we're in a velocity zone here in this lower corner, just in Salt Marsh. And then the A zone goes over the entire lot. We have land under the ocean, salt marsh, a little bit of coastal bank where the riprap is. If you went to the site, you'd see that. And then again, the flood zone. So this project is to demolish a four-bedroom house, primarily in the A buffer of the salt marsh, right through here. So there's a driveway and an existing house, four-bedroom house here. And to rebuild that house no closer to the resource areas, but heading back into this upper corner of the lot. It's about an acre lot, so we've got plenty of room here to site the house. This is an existing four-bedroom septic, and we're going to relocate the septic tank. This is recently installed over to this location here. If you notice on the plan, there's a little relocate tank. All right, so there's an existing driveway opening here in grass, and another paved driveway opening down to the south. And our proposal is to hook up to the garage and use both of these as a loop. And that's out of the buffer zones, but again, in the A flood zone. So if you look at the calculations down there for mitigation, you'll see that we don't need any mitigation. And we have, I think it's a credit of 295 square feet of structure in the A zone. That's from here to here, or there's no A zone work in the coastal bank buffer, A buffer. But there is this little sliver right here of about 130 square feet of work in the B buffer of the bank. Okay, so when you look at the calculations, you'll say, well, what's going on here? It's a big negative number.
You don't get negative credit. That's the whole purpose of doing mitigation.
So in this case,
Yeah, that 885 is not right.
It sounds like a good story, but we're very happy that you're doing that.
I can see where you may argue with that. It seems like if we go, on the plus side, we have to multiply it times 3, but anytime there's a negative, and I multiply it times 3, can't do that. But it doesn't say that in the regs. But either way, if you didn't multiply times 3 on that calculation for the credit, there's still no requirement for mitigation.
You're right, and
Well,
we're not
that's
gonna
fine.
require it,
All right.
and we're saying that we appreciate the fact that you understand that, and you're gonna give us some vegetation in the A zone. That's all
Yeah.
to the plus in this
Yeah,
project.
yeah. And so over on the side yard here, there is this grassed area, again in the A buffer of the marsh. And we propose some mitigation here in trees. And you may ask, why so many trees? Well, because we're cutting trees. We're cutting 3 trees in the A buffer of the salt marsh and 5 trees in the flood zone. So we proposed 8 trees back here in the A buffer. That about does. Oh, I want to go over just the flood zone one more time. The existing first floor is 12.7. We propose the first floor at 15.5, which is 2.5 feet over the flood zone. So the existing building obviously didn't meet the flood zone requirements, but this new one will. It will have flood openings across the back side to allow the flood waters in and out. And that's about it. Any questions?
I know I'll have some, but I think my fellow commissioners will have some first. Jen?
Yeah, Jeff, you're gonna have to provide us a new plan with the correct mitigation requirements. We've never allowed the classification of 3 for the credit. You can argue it doesn't say it, and we can argue the same thing. So it's been like that. So I'll need a new plan with the correct calculations done. Second, who measured your trees out there?
Who measured the diameter?
Yeah.
The survey crew. Is there
I
something?
think they might be a little off. There's some big trees out there, and I know a couple of the commissioners have some concerns about the way they were measured. So just double check the diameter of those trees. There are some really big ones out there.
Is it the red cedars?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's it for right now. It shouldn't take that much to redo those calcs, so. That's
No,
it.
that would be a
Yeah.
real
Well, it
quick
won't
little-
be, all he has to do is say there's a reduction of,
Well, no, I want the new numbers. Instead of the
Yeah.
885, I want 295, and instead of the minus 265, I want minus 30. 295 minus 260, or 35, sorry.
There's a 130, I think. Yeah, 130.
What did I do? Anyway, just,
It's primarily that first section in the A buffer.
yeah, I think that comes out to like 295.
You want it to be 295 instead of.
yeah, you don't,
Yeah, 295,
you
and
were
then,
correct in what you said, and you don't require any,
Yeah,
but
either
just-
way you look at it, it's still
yeah,
a
and
negative.
It's still a
I just
negative,
want
so
the
just put it
correct
what it is.
information.
you're doing minus this much in the A and plus this much in the B,
I
and
can
it's still
tidy
a
that up for
negative.
you and get you a new plan.
Yeah, that's fine, Jeff.
I don't know if we
Thank
need to continue the job, but
you.
do we need to continue this?
No,
No, just get me the new plan. If they don't have any other questions, Jeff, or changes to the plan, that's easy
Okay.
enough. You can
yeah,
just give that
that's,
to me
that
tomorrow.
wouldn't, that's not a, that would not hold up the deal. Michelle?
No questions.
Court?
The proposed driveway that's paved, or is it stone, or what is it?
I didn't specify. I think it's going to be stone, but
I mean, I realize that's
I'm
out
not sure
of
if-
jurisdiction, but I just,
Well, it's
just a
not
con-
entirely out, it's in the flood
yeah.
zone.
it's in the
So,
flood zone.
I mean, I would assume you're gonna, that you should specify or will specify a pervious surface.
Well, I will say that look at the contours, the runoff comes down and a little exit off here. Then the current driveway is removed. This will become all grass, so it has a large area to absorb that runoff. So, I don't know, it doesn't really matter what material it is.
just made my comment.
It's a lovely home that was used by people for many years, and now it's into its next phase of life. I think this is a decent project. It's accommodating a lot of what we require, and I see no issues with it.
Mike?
Is it a net cut or fill? When I finish with this thing?
Well, I think we're gonna have some soil left over. It'll be hauled off. Just looking at
Oh, well, that was
the
my,
size of one structure to the other.
that was one of my
Um,
gut reaction looking at it.
I mean, the existing house has a cellar in it and a drive-under garage,
Right.
where this one has a garage at grade, but there's a crawl space. So I still think it's gonna be, you know, there'll be excess materials. I think in the notice I mentioned that, just in a couple of lines.
That's it.
Mario?
I mean, they wouldn't, you know, stockpile it someplace and keep it. It's just gonna be a mixture of,
Your limited work covers you pretty well. I mean, I was, pretty happy with the thing.
Mario?
No, I was a little concerned, it seemed like the proposed footprint was an expansion of the existing footprint. But after going on the site, the existing building is dilapidated, and this is such a spectacular piece of real estate, it's just beautiful, that obviously they'd want to build a nice house on it, so I've got no problem with it.
yeah. Well, in so many cases, we have nice little cottages that if you wanted to, you know, put $100,000 into it, it becomes a substantial improvement, and you have to tear it down and start over anyway.
Exactly.
And that's what's happening to so many of
You'd
these,
have,
so.
yeah, if you redid that house,
The threshold
You would
would be
put-
hit way too soon.
you would put
Yeah.
well over 100,000.
I mean, it's a sad thing, but that's what's going on.
Tommy?
I have enough information, thank you.
I have a question. Is there any chance some of those, you might have guessed I'm one of the ones who went out and said,
Measured.
this is not 12 inches in diameter. Is there any chance that any of those could be saved?
Well, we are saving, you know, several in that front little island area.
No, I mean dug and put where
Oh.
you're gonna put over there instead. Because they
Spade 'em
have
out and
huge, they have
retransplant,
huge
yeah.
crowns too.
You know, I think that's pretty easy when you have a linear tree or a columnar type tree, but these are very wide. You know, I don't know if we can just get those machines in there and around them.
Well, yeah, but you're gonna be clearing the whole area around there to do the house.
Well, I just,
It should be an easy shot in once the rest, it's all cleared around. I'd just like you to consider doing that, because they're really beautiful trees,
Yeah.
and then you don't have to go out and purchase other ones. Although-
They may not survive that, though. That's a big tree to transplant.
Yeah,
That-
but
that's-
people do
that's-
it.
Yeah, I know they do it. I'm running into the situation now on the other side of the island, and it's been a real stressful.
Yeah, but
they're
this
not
is a
near-
much less stressful environmental side of the island than the other side. This is a much more protected area.
For some of those sizes, that's asking an awful lot of that tree, and even though you're moving it on the same lot and it's been there, that is quite a bit of stress on a tree that size.
Hey Jeff, if we put a condition in that you get an arborist's opinion on whether or not you remove some of those trees, would that satisfy the board?
Yeah.
Put a special
Yeah,
condition
I mean,
in
if you
and
could,
just get
it would be nice.
a certified arborist's opinion on whether or not those trees can be moved and if it would damage the tree beyond being able to survive.
Yeah. But having said all that, I think this is a nice project. It is, I had the same view you did, but, it's a very reasonable project, it's moving back, you're adding extra buffer in the A zone, which is all to your credit.
Thank you.
Okay.
Motion to close the hearing, take it under advisement?
Second.
Any other questions?
Any questions?
Yes.
Sir,
Is it?
I'm getting to that.
Okay, I'll wait.
Any questions from the audience? Sir?
Okay. I represent the
Sir,
Harris
sir,
family.
you have to come up and tell us who you are
Okay,
and speak into the microphone. And speak nice and loud like that so the people in the room can hear you also.
I will. I'll try.
All right.
Thank you.
I represent the Harris family, and we live right next to this project.
And your name is?
Chet Harris.
Okay.
And we share a common property line. We want to support our neighbors. They're very nice people, but we have some strong concerns. The existing house is 1,318 square feet. This proposed house is 4,525, call it 4,500. That's not our concern. The concern is that they've located the house 10 feet from the common property line, and we're going to lose some privacy and possibly the value of the house down the road. So my question to the people who laid this out is, why did you have to put it right up 10 feet where the limit is, and you've got this large tract of land to the south? Got a simple question. How about changing that 10 feet to 25 feet?
Sir, I think your question is a valid question, but it's not a conservation question. It's.
All right,
So-
what kind of a question is it?
It's one the
It's
engineer
one,
can,
it's one you need to, well, it's one the engineer, it's one you need to discuss with your neighbor. I mean, I understand perfectly what we all understand what
Well,
your
the
concern
house has
is.
been on the market for several years. Did you know that?
No, but that's not,
Okay, I understand. So, my question probably isn't conservation, but it's a real one if you live next door.
it is a real one, and are you hiding from me?
No, no.
Jeff,
He's trying.
Jeff,
Why
perhaps,
can't you move it? Okay? Well, that's my question. Thank you.
okay, and what I would suggest is you get together with Jeff and get together with whoever's proposing this house and perhaps
Okay.
reduce
But you
it.
see, my point is right, well,
There's one corner that's close.
here it is, right here.
Yeah.
See the 10.7? You've allowed a safety factor of 7 inches, in case your surveyor makes a mistake.
It's actually about
You see,
9 inches.
Here's the common property line, the corner of the garage, roughly 10 feet from the property line. You've got plenty of room to the south. Why can't you move it a few feet?
Well,
I'm sure you people laid it out, not the owners.
I don't want to put any blame on anybody, but the architect actually laid it out. But
We'll just throw him under the
that is
bus.
10.7 feet away. That is, it's getting close. 7/10 of a foot is actually 9 inches, but it is just that one corner.
Most of the
and
property
so-
is this direction. What's wrong with moving it?
Well, one of the problems is the septic system. We're trying to save that and save some of these cedar trees that we were just discussing that are in there. And so we chose not to take those out, and
Well, you've got one you're taking out right between the narrow
Madam
space
Chairman.
to our property. Right here,
Jeff,
here.
okay?
sir, Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Harris and Mr. Ryder, what we're going to do is take a vote. I'll take any other questions, and then I suggest you two gentlemen take that and go out there and discuss possible solutions.
Fair enough.
And then I'll just tell you, if the house footprint is gonna move. The process is that Jeff will come back here with an amendment, and then we'll review that under conservation. Are there any other questions? Okay?
They're all set.
You're not next, right? You don't have the next hearing, do you? Okay. So, are there any other questions from the audience? Any other questions here? Okay, I believe, Susan, we have a motion and a second on the table to close this hearing and take it under advisement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Why don't you go out, and then, it's a very valid question. It's just that we have to sort of keep moving with conservation.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Madam Chair, do we need to untable the Gray Lane?
Well, he has to table, let's do all the notices and then on table at the end.
Okay.
But you know what? I've lost, here we go.
We're request to amend.
Oh, we're at the end.
No, we're at request to amend.
No, sorry, Courtney. We're not that far down in the agenda yet.
I don't see Tom.
Yeah, I know. Tom's,
Tom Bunker's in the hallway.
Ask him if he wants us to untable his.
Please, Jack.
Sorry, Jack.
He's gonna open it.
Jack does not want to be here till 11 o'clock tonight, folks.
There's some other people who don't want to be
are
here.
you untabling?
Do you want to untable?
No?
No,
Okay.
all right, then bring Jack back in.
Jack.
Come on, Jack.
Continued request for a hearing under a notice of intent. Pine Bank Road Realty Trust, care of Ira Cascade. I'll get it. Cascade, 5 Pine Bank Road, North Falmouth, for permission to demolish the existing dwelling and construct a new 4-bedroom, single-family house with an attached deck with stairs, porch, stone landings to install a concrete retaining wall, landscape tie wall, 4 crushed stone parking places, a Title V sewage disposal system, native plantings, utilities, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
Madam Chairman, did Mr. DiGregorio just recuse himself?
I guess the answer is yes. Did you get that, Susan?
Yes, she
Okay.
did. She caught him sneaking out the door.
All right.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and board members.
evening, Jack.
For the record, my name is Jack
Oh, wait.
Midas-Colley. I'm a civil engineer in private
Wait,
practice.
1 second, Jack.
We need to do the quorum.
I lost. Mike, Betsy, Tom, Courtney, Michelle.
Everybody but Tommy. Okay.
Well, good evening. I'm here as a continued meeting. There was a number of issues that the board raised, and we believe we've addressed them all. I will get out the questions that you had. Excuse
Jeff,
me.
what's the revision date on your plan?
7/23/13.
Certainly.
Is that what you have? Well, the date, yeah, the date of the plan is different from the date received. But the plan was prepared, revised the 23rd, and it was submitted the 24th.
Okay.
Any questions about that?
Nope, we have the right
Anyways,
plan.
there were a number of issues raised. The staff also sent me an email requesting that we, like another plan that's going to be heard tonight, that we have it reviewed by a PLS. They did receive 2 copies of an endorsement by the PLS. I didn't have him stamp all 12 copies, but I had him stamp 2, the 2 that would be your permanent record. As part of the last meeting, you asked us to look at a number of issues. The first issue, and probably the biggest, was the retaining wall. And at that time, you also asked us to have it submitted. We submitted those copies by the structural engineer that shows the detail both of the retaining wall and the walls to the house. The second issue, and probably the one that took the most time in the meeting, was how we're going to contain drainage. And we talked about it, we listened to what you had to say, and we were still of the same opinion that what we were proposing made the most sense, and so what we did is we spoke to the architect. If you take a look at the foundation plans, you'll see that my presentation was consistent with what they were proposing. And what I did is I showed a typical cross-section here. Again, if you look at the structural plans, you'll see the bottom of the footing is at elevation 3.5, the groundwater is at about 4.5, the bottom of the stone is at 5.25, the top of the stone, being 2 feet thick, would be at 7.25, and the slab is at 7.5. And just sort of rekindle your thinking about that, this slab is actually going to be several tenths higher than the surrounding land. And in my testimony, what I told you is that when it rains, the water basically, because it's so flat here, stands on the ground surface. So in order to accommodate taking, well, not the additional flow of water because the footprint is the same, but in order to alleviate some of the surface water that flows from a rainstorm, we proposed to put in almost like a reverse French drain, and that is place the conductor pipe, 2 4-inch PVC Schedule 20 pipe embedded in that 2-foot layer of crushed stone. That crushed stone that would normally be there because we have some fill and some marsh which would have to be excavated. And just so you understand, what in fact they're going to have to do is excavate to elevation 3.5. They are then going to have to build the wall, place the footing somewhere in the order of about a foot below the groundwater. Now, if they do it at the right time of the year and at the right tide cycle, they may not have any standing water there when they place the footings in, or they may have the exact opposite if they're not careful. Hence, without asking the GC, we came up with an idea that what we would do is have a containment area where they could do some limited pumping of the groundwater here versus just having direct overland flow of the water. So those were the major issues that were questioned at the meeting, and we believe we've addressed them. In terms of the capacity, I gave testimony that the void ratio is about 40%. I actually got some literature over the last 3 weeks that supports my statement that it is about 40%. And in fact, this same literature will be submitted on the next application. But I'll give you one copy just to support my statement.
Give us another copy for the next one, Jack.
I have 4 more copies for the next
Okay.
one. Anyways, if you multiplied it quickly, we have about 18 inches of stone with a void ratio of 0.4. We could conceivably contain a 6.5 to 7 inch rainstorm event that hits the surface of the roof, goes down the conductor pipes, and goes underneath. I know some of the board members expressed some concern about possibly freezing and thawing. Well, the last place the ground is going to freeze is directly under the footprint of the house. In the 30 years I've practiced on the Cape, I've never encountered a frozen groundwater condition that is 2.5 feet below the ground. I don't know what the dynamics are. I think it's just the mass of the soil and the mass of the water and the fact that it moves, that it never has the ability to reach the 32 degrees and freeze when it's that far below the ground. Generally, the Cape is also blessed with the fact that our winters are fairly mild, and we don't generally get 2 feet of frost in the ground. Now, that's not to say it doesn't happen, because I've seen it 3 feet. I've seen it 4 feet. But it generally doesn't happen. So I am confident that we're not going to have an issue with that particular drainage design. Those were the issues raised by the board. I think I've addressed them all. If you have other issues, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Jack. Jen,
Jack,
question?
could you give us some cut and fill calcs?
It's noted on the plan that, and just forgive me, it's here somewhere. Oh boy, now all I have to do is find it. I think it's 250 cubic yards.
It's right under,
Oh, it's at the top, and then
Got
the
it.
additional fill needed required construction is 225.
Okay.
There's,
And,
there's no filling in this area. All the fill is really right in this area.
and you said that you're gonna be able to handle about a 6-inch rainstorm.
6.5 to 7 inch.
And what happens if we get a larger rainstorm?
We have problems extraordinaire throughout the whole community. 7 inches, 100-year storm event if it's in 24 hours. I know this will
What community
contain that
just had a
capacity.
ton of rain like yesterday, or 2 days ago?
Well, it could happen, but how often does that happen, Jen? I mean, Michelle, that you would get a 6?
7 inches. It's probably the 25-year storm.
I was one of the community this weekend that just had a massive
Yeah, it
amount.
happens. If you get a cell that stalls over you.
Okay.
We see standing water here all the time.
As opposed to a rain garden or something like that. Okay.
It's not to say they won't have a rain garden later, except that was something that they needed to discuss with the owners, and they just couldn't get from point A to Z on that. So it's something that's on the table with the designer and the contractor and the owner.
Michelle?
Okay, well, Jack, there will be another special condition about dewatering. Just the basin location is not enough of a dewatering plan. I'm gonna wanna know in this particular area, what time of year they're gonna be constructing. If you're gonna be digging your foundation or your footings below groundwater, you know, we're gonna need to know. Okay?
Yep.
All right.
Michelle?
I had just that there was a tree at the top of the slope that someone brought up to keep, and I thought maybe you would show it on the plan, but I don't see it here. But-
It was an oversight, Michelle. I can add it. In fact, at the last meeting, I gave testimony. When I walked the site, I noticed the tree wasn't shown on the plan, and I depicted it where it was. But I'd be happy to make that revision and show it there. It's right, I believe it's right in this corner here, and we're not proposing to lift it, prune it, dig it up. It's out of the footprint of the activity.
And then, I guess, my question is, you said that your experiences, you haven't seen frost at that level or freezing in the ground. What if it does happen? What is the backup plan for maintenance of that system? What if somehow it gets clogged down there and you have problems? What are you going to do?
I can't tell you what the architect's going to do. I can make a suggestion. It's almost like a relief valve. What happens is many of the conductor pipes will actually stop about an inch within the conveyancing pipe. And what will happen is generally is it'll back up and it'll overflow. And that's the hydrostatic relief. Whether it be a catch basin in the road, private road or public road, if it's not maintained, it's going to be a problem.
I understand, but
I'm not going to disagree with that.
catch basin in the road.
Well, they can actually disconnect these conductor pipes. I don't believe that's problematic.
She wants to know how you're gonna route them
I just
open.
want,
If-
yeah, if there's
maybe.
no access to
Or
the
if they
pipes
break.
under the concrete.
If they break.
Are they gonna have to jackhammer up the slab to get underneath if there's a problem?
These are proposed Schedule 40 PVC pipes, so it's H20 rated. They shouldn't break. They shouldn't break. We can speak to the architect about putting a clean out in them,
You should definitely have a clean out to that.
and we can propose clean outs. We actually show them, like I said, it's almost a reverse French drain, but we can, the architect is here tonight. We can certainly convey that message to show that as part of the construction detail.
At minimum, there should be clean outs for those pipes. No other questions?
We're gonna condition that, Jack.
Okay.
Courtney?
Yeah, I'll expand on that. I mean, you're gonna have all this stone under there, basically acting like a giant dry well, right?
That is correct. That's
And
correct.
I have, dry wells by their very nature, over time, fill up with sediment. So you can put clean outs to your heart content to clean the pipes out, but if the stone itself gets filled in with sediment, then what do you have? Then now you gotta dig it all out. You put a dry well outside, and if it clogs up, you can go out there with a backhoe and dig it up, and it's beautiful. You're gonna dig up the guy's basement, his house, and all that.
No,
So
no.
if it fails, then where are we?
Then you have stormwater just running off into other people's properties and on the road.
I mean,
I'm not
frankly,
sure, I'm
I
not
think
sure
it's
how
a
to
poor
respond to
design.
that. Let me take it from a different perspective. We're collecting roof runoff. It's not like it's sheet flow off a road or even sheet flow off the ground where we have sediment
Yeah.
transport. The only sediment transport here is maybe what would strike the roof, or actually the roof components itself, the asphaltic material that breaks
So
down.
you're saying all of this is to contain roof runoff?
That's the only
So
purpose.
that's gutters.
Correct.
And you mean you've never cleaned out gutters in your life?
Oh, I clean them all the time.
Oh, but if they don't get cleaned, all that sediment goes down into the dry well.
I understand, and I,
See,
you know.
I mean, I mean, I've been in the business for 30 years. I know what happens. I've dug up dry wells that have failed.
Well,
And that's not a problem. The owner can dig them up to his heart's content. But it's a little bit more of a logistic challenge to go under a 3 or 4 inch slab in a basement and do the same thing. So now it fails. What are the consequences and how do you deal with it?
I support Michelle's notion that we have cleanouts.
No, cleanouts
Okay.
aren't gonna get rid of a cleanout isn't gonna clean the sediment that collects in between the layer of the rocks. And once the rocks, all it gets clogged up, that's why septic systems fail. Because the fines get caught up in the soils and then it doesn't leach anymore. Well, this is the same thing.
Okay, well, we share different thoughts about this.
I mean,
I'm
you
not
know, I
I'm
understand
not
it's a
convinced
great
it's a
design and
compelling
very
argument,
convenient,
but,
Jack, and
okay,
and
I
love it.
understand.
But I would hate to be liable as a contractor for the failure of that. And I would think you would too.
I feel strongly that it's
It
not
will
problematic,
fail,
but I,
Period, absolutely.
Let's go on with questions.
You've addressed everything that we had asked for. I'd like to alleviate some of the concerns by having a little bit more of an explanation of, you have a cross-section, shows a single pipe. Is that what runs around the perimeter, or is there gonna be a grid work inside? Is it just parallel to the outside walls?
there are 4 lines that we've depicted here, coming off each conductor pipe that runs almost the length of the foundation. Everything in this footprint is going to be a crushed stone base, at least 2 feet thick, which would be there whether or not we propose drainage or
And
not.
I understand that, Jack. I'm not, I just want to try to make it understood. And the cleanouts, no problem with that. And the cleanouts will take out a certain amount of this. Everything in life is going to fail. Everything has a definitive timeline. If this, it's different. I've seen it in other applications, not on the Cape. This is the first time I've seen it to this extent for roof conductors. I believe it has some longevity because of the size of it. If this ended up failing, it's not the end of the world. You don't have to hammer up the floor. I'll give you a real simple answer. Put a dry well outside. You then no longer have an internal water program, you have an external. And it would be over on wherever. But it's not an impossible task to put a dry well outside of the house. This is something that they feel is innovative and in their best interest. I'm not going to redesign it other than to make sure that there's a clean-out capacity so that that satisfies any of that. Outside of that, yes, everything does fail. Everything has a definitive timeline. But the
You know,
extent of this,
Tom, you give me a good idea, one I wish I had thought of earlier. There's no reason why we can't take the dewatering area and make the same leaching field here and just divert the pipe to here, because when they backfill it, they can backfill it with crushed stone. I think that's a reasonable solution. I can see that I'm not convincing you that it's a reasonable proposal. We can make that change fairly easily. I can divert the dry wells to a field, almost like a septic system field,
right, and, you know,
except we would put it there. And as long as I can keep my 25 feet separation, which I think I can, we'll be all set.
the key to this is maintenance, and that's the, I have downspouts going through soffits and interior walls. If you don't clean them, you have failure. It's something that, it's a maintenance thing. It's not the end of the world on it underneath here. I have some concerns. If it was my home, I would not be inclined to do so. But however, they have reached a comfort level that this is something that they can accomplish. In theory, it shall. And as far as a storm event, my wedding day, I had 5.71 inches of rain, and that was only 5 years ago.
That's memorable.
Well,
It happened.
That's too bad.
No, it was great.
I think I can speak for the GC and say that we can change that over, and we'll just direct it there.
So Jeff, you're just gonna make a stone bed over in the construction detention basin area? You're gonna dig that out and make like a little stone bed?
That is correct. We're going to do that anyways for dewatering. And so what we'll do is at the end of the day,
You're
we'll,
gonna dig out the dewatering? I thought it was, okay.
no, we have to dig an area so that the water can be pumped and not go over land. So it's going to be about 2.5 feet deep already. So what I'm saying is at the end of the dewatering, there's no reason why we can't dig this out and just backfill it with stone, put in the horizontal pipe so it goes to the conductor pipes later on.
So you'd rather have a big stone area slab as opposed to a pretty vegetated rain garden?
You know what? I'm not sure I can answer that question. I'll leave that up to, I don't know if the architect wants to discuss that or not.
That's exactly what we were talking about in that area. That's exactly what was said at the last hearing,
Gentlemen.
is divert the water over there. Okay. I'm just
Wait a
asking a
second, Mike.
question.
Mike, let's,
All my concerns have been talked about. I'm a little alone.
okay, I just want to make a comment in that I've never seen this kind of system, but I know a lot about cisterns because I used to live in the Virgin Islands. And they do have to be cleaned out periodically. And there's a big opening and you just drain it and
No,
go down and shovel it
but
out.
I don't think, what I'm understanding is it's not a cistern that he has under his house. What he has is a big stone bed with
Well, right,
pipes going in.
but you can't,
And you can't,
but that's
once
not
that
as easy to
clogs
clean
up.
out
with-
as a cistern is.
Yeah, but once that stone bed gets clogged, then it's not gonna function again, and you can't clean it out externally.
No, I
So-
understand what you're
so-
saying.
But I think what is evolved out of this discussion is that if he runs a pipe from in his house, or in the house, and he puts his system in, but there's an exit point, so if it fails,
Right. then
now it
goes to
gets
this
into
other
that rain
system.
garden, that's fine. That resolves the issue of, okay, what happens if? Because from that point forward, if the rain garden location fails, he can dig it out outside
Right.
and do what he
No,
needs
I
to do.
understand that. But
So
what I'm telling
that's
you is,
fine. If that's what he
I'm
wants to
telling
do,
you,
we'll abide.
I know
by it.
cisterns have to be cleaned out.
Oh, I know, sister, absolutely.
Michelle?
I think Jen covered it. If I lived there, I wouldn't want a stone hole there. I would want something with vegetation. So that would just be my recommendation. But that is up to the designers.
Jack, do you have elevations on, am I just not seeing them?
For what in particular?
There's contours on there.
Okay, that's what I was looking for.
This cross-section shows the elevation, the first floor, the bottom of the footing, the
I just
slab
wanna-
elevation.
I'm just looking for.
The structural
Yeah, I got it,
engineer,
Jack, yeah. I'm just having trouble locating them, but I'm good.
Do we have
Thank
enough
you.
information? We have enough, everybody has enough
Well, Jack,
information?
you're gonna need another, are you gonna need to show us the
tree.
Well,
plan?
he needs the tree and he needs a pipe and
Type?
a new.
I can show those details fairly quickly.
Yeah, okay.
Are you comfortable if Jack submits something after the fact, or would you like a continuance?
On this one, this is just, it's not a calculation change, I mean, you.
Yeah, so you're saying,
I
That's
need
fine.
a continuance, I want these guys to look at it.
so you're saying no,
No,
you want
yeah.
to see a new plan?
Well, I wanna see a new plan, definitely we need a new plan, that's fine. Tom, will you come in and look at it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine, Jackie, you can submit it, we can close it.
Motion to
Okay, thank you.
close the hearing. and-
I can discuss it with Tom.
What?
I'll discuss it with Tom.
Take it under advisement.
Second.
No, bring the plan into me, I'll just have to
Okay.
look at it.
Okay, very good.
This
Okay,
design
those
of
of you in
house
the
is a
audience,
little-
we have a motion to close this hearing and take it under advisement. I think we've all had enough to say at this point. Are there any questions from the audience? Okay, the final chance, any more questions here? Okay, so Jack, we're gonna close this, but we've asked several things to be added to the plan. The tree,
And how soon will that
And the-
be?
Details on the field.
on what the field,
And how
what's gonna
soon will you
happen.
have that?
Right.
How soon do you need it, Jen?
Well, we need it before we vote on it.
Which is next week.
We have 21
Yeah,
days.
you can get it.
We'll
Jack-
submit it Monday.
Which is
Yeah,
next
thank
week. We do vote on it next week. No, he would, but we're gonna vote next week.
You'll vote it,
probably.
he'll bring, Jack, can you bring me enough, like 5 copies?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, you'll have it for next week.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on this table to close, to close this hearing and take it under advisement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you, Jack.
You're welcome.
James Lucio, Lot 532, Acapesket Road, for permission to construct a new 4-bedroom, single-family house with an attached garage deck with stairs, to install a retaining wall, Title V sewage disposal system, dry wells, driveway, trench drain, utilities, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, the quorum on this project, Mike, Betsy, Court, Tom, and Tommy.
Okay, Michelle, you're out of this one. Do you have any comments before Jack begins?
No.
Jack, the floor is yours.
Good evening. Give me just one minute.
Here.
Good evening. Again, for the record, my name is Jack Landers, calling with civil engineer in private practice. And this, too, is a continued meeting. And with me this evening is Attorney Brian Wall to discuss, if he feels necessary, a couple issues relative to this particular project. At the last meeting, there was an awful lot of dialogue by myself, by Brian, by Mr. McGrath, regarding this project. We listened to everything he had to say, and we believe we've made all the changes that the commission requested, and probably many so of the issues raised by Mr. McGrath, who was representing the abutter to the south. Specifically, we submitted DEP data sheets prepared by Jack Vaccaro. We moved/redesigned the house, and I'll explain that in a little more detail. We checked the driveway runoff, i.e. it's not on one of these plans, but when I flip it over, I'll show you. We actually surveyed to Acapesket Road, found that it runs, or it slopes all the way towards the site, and have come up with some mitigation. In fact, we show it here. We don't show the spot grades, but I'm asserting to you that from the berm at Acapesket Road down to this match line, which is here, it continues down the road. So what we've done is, like Black Beach, we super elevated it. Proposed the super elevation take place at the end of the project, and proposed to put a leaching pit over here to intercept the surface water prior to it getting down towards the house, and then becoming possibly problematic for the trench detail. You also requested that we show a cross-section of the retaining wall. It's not applicable, and I'll explain why later. You asked us to keep a minimum of 10 feet from the limit of work. We've done that by the modifications. You asked us to provide cut and fill calculations, and we proposed the net fill is less than 250 cubic yards, as shown down here. And then we did an extraordinary amount of work, not only describing what we're planting, but where we're planting it and why we're doing it, and that is shown on one of the other pages. The only reason I brought this is to show you this is what we presented last week. This is what we're presenting this week. I think the major hiccup the Conservation Commission had is that the proximity of the proposed house to the limit of work, as well as the limit of work itself. So what we've done is we've actually truncated portions of the house here, as well as compressed it a little bit. One of the comments Mr. McGrath made is that we didn't dimension the house, we show it dimensioned. And we show a minimum of 10.4 feet from any portion of the structure to the limit of work. And the limit of work is entirely upland of the a buffer. We accomplished that, and in addition, we also removed the retaining wall, which is why it's no longer applicable. We did so because I basically told the designer that we can't get the house on this lot as originally proposed. He wanted to have the basement elevation, even with the garage, at 27.5. I told him it wouldn't work, that keep the garage at 27.5, have a full basement 7.5 feet lower, so we can pick up the vertical difference. Thereby, we eliminated the retaining wall. Thereby, we allowed more room for planting in this area. We went from a 3-to-1 slope with a retaining wall that was 4.5 to 5 feet tall to no retaining wall and an 8-to-1 slope in this area. So it's pretty flat now. We took the lithium pit that was once here, and we moved it up here. Now, what's highlighted in yellow are the drainage easements, which may come under discussion tonight, I don't know, but I wanted to just highlight where this easement ends and where that easement ends, and it's highlighted in yellow. And if need be, I'm sure Brian can discuss that. We showed you the cut and fill, and that's it on these 2 pages. Give me a moment. This is simply the other plan, but blown up at a larger scale so you can read it easier. One of your requirements is that we show every tree that is within the jurisdictional area, which this shows and hasn't changed. It shows the same house changes as the other plan, and it shows the limit of work. It also shows these footpaths, and one thing I failed to mention is that everything highlighted in brown here, which is the same as that other plan, is what's already altered. These are dirt ways. I know, the testimony I gave at the last meeting is George Souza, who used to live here, and I were, I'd like to say, close friends. And I've been to his house a number of times, and I knew how he used this, and this was specifically to go to his shellfish grant that he held in this area. He probably used it for other things. But he also had linear movement, that is, he could walk parallel to Green Pond because he liked to do that. So at my last hearing, I gave testimony that there was a footpath. In fact, shown sideways, but that's the footpath. And here's the proposed house, and here's all the area we're planting. Now, one of the comments the staff made, and I met with Jen, and she was kind enough to discuss it with me, is we had to give you a buffer calculations. We calculated the existing disturbed area, we calculated the newly disturbed area, we calculated the impervious area that's within your jurisdiction, which we determined to be 1,580 square feet. And then, taking that information, we showed the proposed planting in order to meet that regulation, which is we proposed, which is required to be 3,160, and we actually proposed 3,187. And our client is literally replanting almost that whole footpath, which is all in the A buffer. It's the only place we could plant it. and meet that requirement. We did exclude several areas. We excluded a 3.5-foot path to go down here so our clients could access this area, although I'm not sure how what they're going to do when they get to the bottom of it, because we're proposing to plant that whole footpath. And we excluded this little section here because there's a 10-foot wide dock easement, and I didn't feel that we could encumber that easement by planting in it, so we left that part alone. I believe those are all the requirements that you requested of us. I'm sure the staff or the board may have other questions, but those are the ones that we know were a major issue and you wanted us to address. There were two other different issues that I didn't discuss, and that is the gravel surface is going to remain gravel, and the stockpiling would be done on the upland side of the proposed house. That's temporary in nature. We're going to preserve access to the neighbor's property at all time. So more than likely, it's really not stockpiling. It's going to be removal of material, build it, then bring it back in, because there's no place to stockpile it because of the easements and just the unique shape of the lot. So there you have it. Do you have any questions?
Jen?
Jack, did you give us a cross-section on the trench drain detail? Did you give us that?
I thought the staff submitted it. I can
No, is it on, which page?
It's not on the plan. It would have been
I have three. Is
It,
it on page 33? Is that what that is? Cross-section leasing basin for roof runoff?
well, there's cross-sections for the leaching pits. I thought my staff gave you a cross-section of the leaching trench, and that reminds me, I want to give you the same
Give us that.
porosity of structural backfill in triplicate.
Yeah, is the cross-section in there, Mike? If not, Jack, just
I
please.
will provide it.
And on, I have a note that the board wanted to see the architecturals, most likely court wanted to see the architecturals on this.
Well, that one's going to be hard to come by only because it was about a week and a half ago we made the design change. I called the designer and I said, this is what you got to do to make this work.
Okay, well, the board will have to determine whether or not they feel comfortable proceeding without the architecturals.
Right. We actually stayed on here. The basement floor is elevation 20 and a half. The first floor is 29 and a half, and the garage is 27 and a half. So this allows us to design that grading I spoke to you about. It makes a lot more sense. We were taking, and I'm being honest with you, before this top of bank changed, this worked on the property. After that, we tried to use the same footprint. It didn't work. We realized that. We presented it. We went back and we just scrapped that concept and came up with a different one. So we can, as I said before, have that 3-to-1 slope here, get rid of the retaining wall, move the pit up. In fact, we have a little bit of a wall right here instead of the wall that wrapped around.
I saw that.
So
That wall's only 3 feet high, you say, right?
it's less than 4, let's
Yeah.
put it that way.
Okay. You addressed all the issues that the staff had, Jack. We went through the planting area and everything. We did get a letter from both attorneys regarding the zoning issues on there. That's not our concern. Okay? You guys need to battle that out on a different stage.
Brian would be happy to
And,
discuss that with Ed.
But the board's going to have to decide whether or not they're comfortable proceeding without the architecturals on this one. Okay, Jack?
Okay, I don't know if Brian has any comments.
And tomorrow, just give me a copy of that trench drain detail. You can email it to me.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
Back, there will be some questions. Court, you want to start?
Just confirming that
Happy to
the
see
deck
the whole-
elevation is about 6 inches below the first floor elevation, which is 20 feet.
It's going to, actually, that deck is going to be at elevation 29.
The deck is going to be at elevation of
29, because the first floor now is 29, there's a basement underneath. And that's why we got rid of the wall
Okay, so what's the
Courtney.
elevation of the deck?
The deck will be a half foot lower, or one step lower than the
Okay,
first
and
floor.
so, and what's the grade underneath the deck?
19.8. That's shown on the other side. It's shown on the first plan.
So the deck, and
It's,
the grade of the ground below the deck is 19?
it's 19.8 here, the basement elevation's 20, and then from 19.8, it slopes down, and let me just go back to the other page.
What I'm trying to understand, which is why I'd asked for architecturals, how high off the ground is the deck?
9 feet.
That's what I thought from reading the plan. You got me confused.
That's what,
So
it's on the
9
big-
feet,
it's on the
but
big-
you've got a
it's on the
10-foot
big feet,
offset
right.
now. That's
Right.
workable.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing above the deck.
Correct.
There's no second deck or anything else.
Correct.
So anything else they do beyond, is this a two-story house?
I'm drawing a complete blank. I think so. Yeah,
In other
yeah.
words,
It's
the
actually,
second-
it's
the
going to
second
half a
floor would
story
be
above
another
it.
8 to 9 feet above that.
That's right.
So-
The
so
ground,
the reason why I asked for architecturals, the reason why I'm asking you this question now, and you made the adjustment in the limit of work, I just want to be comfortable that the work of constructing this house can be done properly with a 10-foot offset. And your description of how far off the ground the deck is, how far away the deck is from the thing, and the fact that there's no second floor above that, so they can actually work off of the deck to build the rest of the house, or to do the finish, or shingling and putting windows in and so on.
Exactly.
Is not a problem.
That's right.
And you've satisfied me, and based on that, I don't need to see architecturals.
okay.
Tom,
Another note is we do show the big foots, whether it's going to support the deck.
we see the big feet.
Okay.
No questions.
Mike?
The surface runoff coming down the road, that's being handled how?
First 175 feet go to here. Here's the match line. That match line is right here. And so from this point to this point is where the trench drain comes in. So we have about 75 feet of driveway we're actually picking up.
But the above that is going into a dry well?
Yes, because we propose to super elevate, and it says in this notes, regrade 2% slope from south to north. So we're basically creating a gutter line along here, and then it's going to a pit. At that point, it then continues from this point. This is right here. It continues and it goes down to a trench drain, which is picked up by that basin. And there's also another basin over here, so we can pick up all the roof drainage.
Okay. No other questions?
I have a question. I have a couple of questions. You're done, right?
I am.
I'm just going to follow up on what you're saying. So the area of drainage that you calculated for this dry well, it's not just the area of the road that's above it, right? It's the area, the surface area of that watershed? Because it's not just what
No,
falls on the road, it's
I understand.
what falls into the road.
I understand what you're saying. This much I can tell you. It doesn't include any of Acapesket Road, because there's a berm there now. And Brigetti Lane is slightly lower than this, and has its own drainage system. Brigetti Lane is, well, you can see it right here and right here. This side, right in through here, there's a little bit of a mound, and then it's flat over here. So, to answer your question, about 20 feet of that road, the road itself completely, and then the coefficient of runoff is probably like 0.3 for the two shoulders, which would be another 10 to 15 feet.
But Acapesket is higher and upslope, right?
Yeah, it's got a berm, so whatever water's on
Well, I know,
Acapesket
but-
stays on
but it-
Acapesket.
No.
Well,
Not in a big storm, and it goes right over the
You know
berm.
what? I anticipated that question. If we have to, we'll create a berm at the top of the road so we don't take the town's water.
Well, then where's it gonna go?
Wherever the town decides to send it. There's a berm there now. It's not our responsibility. And Our responsibility is with ours, and there is a berm there now, so if you're asking me where's the drainage going at Capesket, I'd have to take a look at it. I asked the crew.
But I am asking you, am I
I-
not correct, Courtney, that you're not supposed to do something on your lot that puts
Oh,
water
Absolutely.
into
Oh,
next
Betsy.
door lots?
oh, Betsy, we're not diverting water, to some other place. Okay, we're not doing
Even if
that.
you put another berm there?
There is a berm there now, is what I'm saying. The berm is higher than our driveway. The water that strikes the road stays on the road, and does it pass to the south? I'm not sure. I didn't do the centerline grades of the Acapesket Road. I just did the centerline up to
Many of the
Acapesket.
engineers come in here and they say, oh, there's a berm, it just runs down into the.
Well, there is a berm on the
drywall of
road.
But if there's a big storm, it goes, rushes down the road, it goes right over the berm to whatever's the,
I can't tell you what Acapesket Road does, other than we check to make sure the water doesn't directly flow from Acapesket Road onto the driveway. That much I can state. Now, does the road flood when there's a heavy storm? I don't know. Does it overtop the berm? I don't know that answer either. We just checked to make sure there was no direct discharge from the paved surface of Acapesket Road onto this driveway. That's what we
that's
did.
your testimony.
Yep.
Okay, my question, I have a couple of other questions. So this pathway that you're planning to plant,
Yeah,
that's on your land,
correct.
that's not an official right-of-way, is that correct?
None whatsoever.
But, let me ask you this, is it used regularly by people in the neighborhood?
I don't know the answer, but I can give you something around, this is land court land. Having said that, and I'm not an attorney, but in the Commonwealth of
I'm not an attorney, that
Massachusetts,
doesn't mean
in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, unless you have a written right to use that property, you cannot gain adverse possession for land that is recorded as land court land in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. You just can't. George
Even if
sued,
people
I
walk
think,
over
I
it?
think,
Can I just ask Brian? So if somebody used my yard to cut into the next neighborhood, and they used it for 20 years and I never blocked it, they couldn't claim adverse possession. Is that what he's saying?
Yeah.
Not exactly, but let me explain. For the record, my name is Brian Wall. I'm an attorney. I represent the applicant. In Massachusetts, there are two different recording systems. There's what's called the registry system, which essentially takes whatever is brought to the counter, and as long as the document meets certain minimum requirements, like it's signed and it's notarized, it's accepted for recording, and then lawyers have to figure out what those documents mean. If you have that kind of land, somebody that does what you just described could claim rights of adverse possession. There's a separate recording system called the Land Court Registry, and without getting into too many details, essentially what that is the land is put through the land court system where all of the rights are determined in the property. The property is staked, and my analogy is it's kind of like when you go to a wedding and the priest says, speak now or forever hold your peace. And so the land court goes through that process, and if somebody doesn't come forward, then the rights are eliminated. And what Jack said is correct. Once a property is registered in the land court, no rights of adverse possession can be obtained.
Okay.
So if someone walks across that for 20 years, they cannot gain rights by
Okay,
adverse
they
possession.
can't say you can't block this now because I've been, okay.
No, it's a different recording system,
Okay,
and this is that kind of land.
okay, now that I've said that, and you're not gonna like me to say this, but I just told Tom, and I am gonna say it. You actually don't have to, if you're building in the B zone, you're not required, if there's A zone is totally vegetated.
Oh, I know that. I talked to Jack about that, but he had this path that wasn't vegetated. It's in the A zone, so they're proposing to plant it. We
So
went through that.
Okay,
Yeah, we went through that.
Yeah, that was the fundamental issue between.
okay.
Yeah, we went
Okay,
through
so
that.
there's room for,
Yeah, there was
that.
room for them to put certain plantings. Did they
Okay.
need to put the 3,000? If they didn't have room to put the 3,000, they didn't need to do it. If
Right.
the A was
Whatever
completely
they-
vegetated.
right, they
yeah.
had to right. But my only concern was if this is a common path, then it would be
Oh, if it
blocking
was
that
easement,
path.
we wouldn't block the easement
All
rights, no, we wouldn't do that.
Okay,
Yeah, if there was an easement issue, we wouldn't block that.
and my last question,
Jack and I had a good conversation
Is-
about.
For whom?
well, whoever, either of you can answer this. Is there, so you changed the footprint of the house. You have an architect?
We have a architectural designer. He's not a licensed architect.
But who can work with this?
Oh, I checked with him prior to,
Okay, I just don't
Doing
want to
that.
see this come back, if this is an approved project, come back with a completely different design
No.
because person said.
to put your mind at ease, I met with him 2 weeks ago and told him what we
Put my
needed to
mind at
do.
ease? Is that what you want to do?
Well, I'd like to think, yes, to put your mind at ease, that it's a project that can happen, and happen correctly. I met with him 2 weeks
Brian doesn't
ago.
want me to say, I don't buy your argument.
Okay,
He doesn't
2
want
weeks
me to
ago,
say
we
that.
met with the architectural designer, and I told him what we had to do, and he assured me it can be done that way.
All right,
That's it.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, yes, we're waiving the architecturals, and, or at least I'm fine with that. But if we approve this plan, we're approving a footprint that shows the dimensions of a house, and it's clearly labeled that.
Right.
And it's also showing the dimensions of a deck, which is clearly labeled deck. And by every definition, you know, they can do whatever they want within those parameters.
Footprint, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not a porch, it's not a patio, it's a deck.
Got it. So, do we have enough information?
I have none.
Move to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
Oh, Tommy, you're on this one.
I have enough information.
Okay, sorry. I
okay.
forgot that you weren't on the last one.
It's okay.
Mr. McGrath, you must have got,
I'd like to file some testimony, and it's very difficult if you move to close the hearing before you hear the testimony that might cause you to ask for a continuance or even deny the project.
Mr. McGrath, this is how we always do the
I
process.
understand, but when
We've
I'm
been doing
sitting
this
here
for 8 years.
opposing a project, I don't like the procedure.
Oh,
But
well,
when
when
it's
it's
in
your
your
project,
favor,
you
you
do
like
like
it.
the procedure.
You love the procedure when it's in your favor.
You've never asked me about that. Yes, we did.
If you would like to file your testimony, Mike, come on.
Madam Chair? Mr. McGrath, would you like to make any testimony at this time? I would be
Yes,
more than
I would.
happy to, as others on the board, to entertain that.
Mike must have gotten my no hat rule tonight.
I forgot my hat.
Well, that's a good thing to forget when you're in this room when the meeting is going on.
Thank you.
I get one too, so does Susan.
I didn't bring it up. I don't have
And
it. Afterwards, I'll give you mine.
Jack, you can have mine. I'll read along, oh, thanks. Mike, can you make sure a copy gets in the record, please?
Done deal.
Thank you. Got it, thank you.
You already had it down, Mike, yeah.
I testified last time I'm here representing Butter Charles Slacken. Partially in response to my objections from the first time, we were told by the proponent's engineer that the plan that would be submitted that was stamped by a professional land surveyor. I came to your, my staff came to your office, and we picked up copies of the plan, and they do not bear the stamp of a professional land surveyor. I reiterate again that the location of wetland resources and property lines, they can only be determined as far as the location by a land surveyor. This plan requires a stamp of a professional land surveyor. Lacking a stamp and seal of a registered professional land surveyor, the plan does not conform to the requirements of law. And how much faith can you place on a plan not prepared in accordance with the requirements of law? So, if you don't think that I'm correct, you should ask the proponent for sufficient time to give the town to ask the same question from the Board of Registration of Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors. I know I'm correct. Under the zoning bylaw, the lot has to have 40,000 square feet of upland. We raised this issue before in paragraph 10 of our letter dated June 24, 2013. The plan does not show the actual upland area, but carries on the plan the same area shown on the original plan. I did attach a copy of the original plan from 2000, I'm sorry, I have 3. So they've carried over the original area. We asked that all the wetland boundaries in the lot be shown, but they're not. Since there's only 332 square feet excess over the minimum lot size, this is an important issue. So I'll skip the rest of it. But we really believe that the area of upland is less than 40,000 square feet, since the petition plan shows no labeled wetlands adjacent to Green Pond. The only way for the town to ascertain is there is sufficient upland to obtain a building permit is to have all the wetlands on the lot marked, and the actual upland area calculated by a registered professional land surveyor. We doubt that this minimum lot area exists. We raised this earlier, and this was ignored by the proponent. There's a significant chance they don't have suitable upland area, and if they don't have suitable upland area, they have to apply for relief. I call your attention to the plan that says planting plan, dated March 4th, 2013. They're showing work all the way across the entire frontage. The only wetland marked is right here, down by the boundary. I submit that that wetland should have been marked all the way across, because I have a case where I have a wetland, a path that runs through a bordering vegetated wetland in another town. So it seems to me that they should mark the wetlands across the entire lot, and if they don't have 40,000 square feet of upland, they're not entitled to a building permit unless they go to the Board of Appeals. So I submit there's 2 flaws. One, it's not stamped by a professional land surveyor, it needs to be. And the other thing is they haven't shown the wetland resources on the lot. Are there any questions you'd like to ask me about my testimony?
Mike, we do have a stamp from a survey. It was submitted the day after.
Well, if I came down and looked at your file last Friday and it was supposed to be filed by Wednesday, the bottom line is that all of the plans should have been stamped.
Okay, Mike.
All of the plans should have been stamped by a professional land surveyor.
Okay. And second, I do agree with you on the wetland line.
That the entire lot, the wetland line
Yeah.
should be shown for the entire lot. Court.
Concern,
Yeah,
I agree with the concern.
My question through the chair is directed to Mike. The plan that you filed or submitted with your letter indicates that the area of upland on this lot, and you're talking about the whole dog leg thing, is 40,000, and I'm just barely able to make it out.
332.
332, so what's the point?
What's the point?
Yeah.
I do not believe that the Conservation Commission reviewed the boundaries in 2003. And in any case, wetland boundaries are only good for 3 years. I've actually marked some wetlands on this line, and I think there's more wetlands than shown on the petition plan.
So your contention is, despite what this plan shows, your contention is that it should be flagged and recalculated?
And no matter what, you're showing work that is adjacent to wetlands, i.e. the planting of that path, and the wetlands may actually be under the path. I do have a case where we have a path that's running through wetlands.
I'm just trying to understand.
Yep.
You know, I'm just...
Gentlemen, would you like to respond to that? I mean, there is work proposed. I mean, prior to that,
McGrath has a point.
the work wasn't proposed in the dogleg.
I'd like to offer some rebuttal to those remarks. First of all, at your last meeting, we actually showed you a plan of the whole registration case with the wetlands delineated in 2002. That was part of my testimony.
Right.
I actually showed you that plan stamped by Paul Ryle.
Right, but
I
that's not
told
the
you-
wetlands within 3 years.
Here's the point. First of all, that's a zoning issue. Secondly, the planning board had, and I said at that meeting, if the planning board doubted it, they had choices. They could have told us, go to the commission and verify that. They didn't. They could have had their staff, and they have surveyors themselves, go out and check our delineation. They didn't. They accepted it. We actually had it staked, surveyed, and shown on that plan, and Paul Ryle is the one who reviewed that plan because it had to go, well, it's a property line it's a redivision of a lot, and it had to be done by a land surveyor, and it was done under Paul Ryle's direct supervision. So they had the opportunity to say if it was or wasn't correct. The fact of the matter is, the wetland line is only good for 3 years, but that doesn't mean the zoning changes. At that time, the wetlands line, we're presuming, is correct, and as you know, anyone who's practiced on this board over a number of years knows the wetlands regulations have changed. In fact, interpretation of wetlands have changed, i.e., I can go back to prior to the Rivers Act, prior to Endangered Species Act, which were never discussed in the Wetlands Protection Act. It has evolutionized. One of the disadvantages of any project is it's
Just
cast
flag
in
the
stone.
line.
What?
Just send Jack out there to just flag the
Well,
rest of the line.
I mean, Jack, all of this is interesting historically,
Yeah.
but the
Yeah.
fact is, we're in
I
2013.
agree with you. However, okay,
We're
let me
in
just get to the,
2013, and if we're going to certify a plan that has the correct, all of our RDAs, we say, no, the wetlands line, what do you say?
Confirmed.
Wetlands line not confirmed.
Yeah, just flag the
Well,
line.
we can't accept, especially with the planting, if the wetlands lines aren't confirmed.
May I just ask a question? I think the last time that we were here, and I don't want to put words in the board's mouth, but I think there was a consensus that because of, as Courtney said, the dog leg shape to the lot, the work was so distant from where the wetland line went that there wasn't a need to reflag it so that it's a current line. Now it seems that because we're planting closer to it, there seems to be, I was watching the facial expressions, that there might be a need to flag the line. So my question to the board, if I may, through the chair, is that under 10.18, I believe that the planting of mitigation and indigenous species is allowed without a permit. So if we could do that planting without a permit, do we have to flag the line?
I mean, like under an
Without a
RDA.
permit?
Yeah.
Jen?
I have to look up and see what Brian's talking about.
I'm not sure of the number,
I'm
but I
not
think it's
gonna-
10.18.7 or 8, around there. And the-
Well, we
and-
would certainly allow people to plant mitigation plantings close to a wetland without
Right.
requiring an NOI.
And it's just a practical question because, I'll be very frank with the board, it's going to cost the client a continuance and significant sums to go reflag the line. And so if the board is satisfied that it doesn't need to be done, then I would ask that the board waive that requirement. If the board is convinced that it does need to be done, then we're going to ask for a continuance because I'm not going to allow my client to have a denial on something as simple as that. And so I just would like some feedback on the
Yeah,
board.
I'm not, here's what I mean,
can't
Jen's
find-
looking. I certainly would agree, I mean, we have RDAs where people plant things. What, in this particular case though, because it's half a lot and half a lot,
Right.
I don't know how comfortable
And
people
I'm not,
would be with that.
again, out of candor, I'm not going to argue with
I
the
mean,
board.
as far
I
as
just-
how much upland versus wetland
Oh,
can be
I-
done, that's a zoning issue,
Yeah,
that's
that's
not
not
I
our
agree.
issue.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And it's,
That's not why we're doing this.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
And
We're
again,
not going to make that
I'm
determination,
being completely
Brian.
candid. If the board is prepared to deny it because of something technical like this, we're going to ask for a continuance and do it, but it's a financial
Yeah, we
requirement.
understand, so
We
we'll
understand.
let the board,
Okay.
Brian, but I think you might just have to do it, I mean, because you risk the appeal as well, so. I can't see where, if you want to,
Could I take a look at it?
yeah, absolutely, because I think I know where you were talking about.
who do you want to talk to, Brian?
Yeah, see, that's what I was just.
I want to address
Yeah,
this
yeah,
issue.
no.
Yeah, Brian, and we,
Yeah, I just wanted to wait because he wants to look. 10:18:9.
Got it, yeah. The commission may act permit, yeah, but it doesn't say, it just says it requires a performance bond. It doesn't say it doesn't need a permit.
Just, I knew I showed this plan Wednesday, and if I could just make reference, this is a plan prepared in September 18, 2000.
It says, Jen, excuse me, Jack, 10:18,
I know, I saw
10C, plantings of native
10C.
species of trees, shrubs, or ground cover but excluding lawns.
Yeah, but none of that says exempt from filing a permit. You're working within an area that is a protectable resource area buffers, needs a permit.
Well, it could use an RDA, it could come in under an RDA.
Right, and then staff would have gone out and had a,
Oh, yeah, okay, I see it.
Administratively, because the language of the regulation
Yeah.
says Conservation Department, which is staff.
That's-
Right.
I don't wanna do that. I'm
You wanna ask
reviewing
your question?
plans and
Yeah.
everything
Let
else
him
next
ask his
week.
question
Sure.
first.
You know, we're the Conservation Commission, and so, you know, we will require the definition of wetlands boundaries because it has some significant bearing on this particular project. Whether that is actually the case or not, this is one of those situations where that need on our part, and perhaps zoning, the line is very blurred, and when you have delineation back in 2002 that had an upland area of just 300 square feet over 40,000, which is the minimum, a new determination could change that. And I guess I would look at it from the standpoint of that if this were my lot and I were doing a project on it, I think I would want to spend the money to have the wetlands determination done, to know in fact whether not only will I meet conservation issues, but also zoning issues, because I'd hate to move forward on this and have it go away. That's just my comment here. I think you're so close to that thing. If this said 50 or 60,000 square feet of upland, that would, I wouldn't even raise that issue now. But you're only 300 feet over that, and it's 11 years, and
At least.
things
I
have
mean, it could
changed.
have been
Yeah.
2000 that the.
Yeah, things could change, and would it change 300 feet one way or the other? Who knows? I don't know.
300 square feet
So
isn't very
I guess, you know, I'm just saying, it may not strictly be a conservation issue that the thing get flagged, but again, if it were my lot and I were developing it, prudence would tell me, I've got to make sure my bases are covered before I go down the expense of, you know, trying to get a building permit and all the rest of the things that go into building a house.
Jack, if you wanted to ask for a continuance, Brian, it'd be August 21st, next available one, because they're not meeting on the 14th.
I mean, if, Jen, and I will add to this, if you're comfortable that we don't need that line flagged for
I
our
just think-
purposes, then I'm
No, I
comfortable
think
closing it.
you know, when we weren't working in the path,
right.
you know, we
We
could
are working in
kind
the
of
path.
see, we're working in the path now, and just to keep everything, you know, status quo, the way we do things, we should do it. I mean, I could see just the way the lot was shaped and all of the construction was there, but now we're moving into that little pork chop area, that little leg, so just
Big
to
leg.
keep
It's a
everything
big leg.
consistent, I think it should be flat.
I had asked a question for the feedback, and I think we've got it, so we're going to flag it.
Okay, well, would you like the 21st?
We have a motion to close, I think.
I know. You want to
we
take it
can-
off?
we
I'll
can withdraw it.
remove my motion.
Did I second it?
I need a point of
If I did
clarification.
second it, I will withdraw my second.
Yes?
Oh, okay. I guess I'm trying to understand, there's a couple issues here. One of them which I absolutely disagree with Mr. McGrath, but am I understanding that, first of all, we want to show where the path is in relationship to the wetlands line?
We want to see where
And-
the wetlands line is.
Is, okay. I understand.
We want to know where the wetlands are on that
Well,
lot.
in the year 2002, this
Jack,
is...
I don't want to hear, if I hear 2002
Okay.
again, this is not going to be nice.
But I want to make a point.
Getting right
In
there.
2002, the planning board had the right to tell us to go.
Jack,
Now,
Jack, we're not the
we've-
planning
okay,
board,
I've
we're
heard
the
this
I
twice
conservation.
tonight
understand that,
from
and
you,
there,
Jack.
and you,
All right, please. All right,
Do you want the 21st? Yes.
On behalf of the applicant, I move to continue this to August 21st.
Second.
Any other questions? Any further questions from the audience? Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, which is to continue this to August 21st, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Jack, thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Jack, drainage truck tomorrow, I'll email him tomorrow. It'll be fine.
Who's Beckles Road? Isn't that,
That's Mike. Mike.
No, that's Kevin. Kevin's
Oh,
here
all right.
because Kevin, we
It's
had to
paperwork.
continue
Okay.
it because you did not want to continue.
Yes, right, right.
Heritage.
sure, this
Which
will be
made
quick.
Kevin sit here for
Got
that
it.
natural
Sherwood
heritage.
Lake, 7 Beckles Road, for permission to pump, fill, and abandon an existing cesspool and install a new Title V sewage disposal system, replant with trees and shrubs, repave the existing driveway and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
Yes,
Tom?
firm on this.
Excuse
Mike,
me,
Beth.
wait. If you want to talk with your clients, could you do it outside, please?
Mike,
Whoever you're talking to in the audience.
guys, it's 9 o'clock. Pull it together here. Mike, Betsy, Tom, Mario, Courtney, Michelle. Kevin is here because we would not allow him to close this hearing without natural heritage, which we received at 3:30 this afternoon, thereabouts.
Close
Just
the
this
hearing and take it
afternoon?
under advisement.
Just this afternoon.
After much begging and pleading on my part,
Ah.
because they weren't
And
going
we
to issue
made
it until
Kevin sit
tomorrow.
here through the fireworks of the
So-
last two hearings.
I've made a motion to close it and take it under advisement.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close this hearing and take it under advisement. Any other-
Second.
No, we already did.
Okay.
And another second, 2 seconds on this. Any questions from the audience? Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, unanimous, so moved. Thank you, Kevin.
They should all be so easy.
Yeah. You're not the only one who thinks that.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Motion on table, 37 Gray Lane.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion to on table, 37.
Did you just jump in front of the ladies back there, Tom?
Jeremy and Sarah Byer, 37 Gray Lane, for permission to expand the existing patio, install native mitigation plantings and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
Hang on one second, Madam Chairman, we need to let Susan catch up. We're at the very beginning of the hearing, where Tom needed the table because we were waiting for Mr. Duffy.
I did.
And Courtney, Tom Courtney. Would you like to give us your very few green cards? This is what you guys have to,
She keeps holding that up.
I mean, I've never seen it. This is more than we get in a year.
It's a whole condominium association.
I was 6'2".
6 is perfect. Tom?
Thank you.
Is that
Two
2?
different sets. They're labeled 1 and 2, just so you can keep them straight. There's
1 and 2, 1 and 2. You guys look at this and you keep this. and
For
we'll
the
look at
for the
this.
record, my name is Tom Bunker of BSS Design. Have photos there for those of you, I assume you've all been out there, but perhaps not. This property was permitted first, I think, in 2006 under a notice of intent. And there was a later amendment in 2009. It was done under the previous set of regulations, and they have changed in the meantime. At the time, there was a 25-foot coastal bank setback, and this all stayed upland of that setback. Currently, under the new regulations, and so this is a coastal bank through here and a velocity zone, so there's a 50-foot A zone, and then the remaining 50-foot B zone. So that 50-foot A zone does come up onto that lawn area, which you see as a curved stone wall in front of the house through this area. So it's not an intact or not a vegetated buffer, fully vegetated buffer in there. There's a little bit of history. This was the plan that was first approved. There was 358 square feet of bluestone paving through here, which was not built. A later plan, an amended order, took that out. Just pointing that out just as a matter of history, that under the previous regulations, this amount of paving was approved. But later amendment taken out and compliance. So this is a whole new hearing, just sort of pointing out the history of it. The house, the swimming pool in this location. It's not a very big patio. This is, what is it, only about, this area patio is only 7 feet wide right through here, and otherwise it's 30 feet by 15 feet, 450 square feet or so of patio in that area, and they would like to use a little more. There's a gate from the driveway right here, and that's why house patio is the 10 feet, a couple inches to line up with that gate and those stones right through here. 10 feet a little by 30 feet, it's 311 square feet. It is all in the B zone to the coastal bank. In the B zone, a 2-to-1 mitigation planting fitted on. As you can see on the pictures, one on the sheet number 1, I've drawn on there roughly where the patio area will go. It's all in lawn. On sheet number 2, there's another sketches of sort of where the patio will go, and also where some proposed mitigation can go. One deficiency I'll point out in the mitigation, in this corner right here, I have mitigation going up against the corner of the house, right there. And your regulations say nothing within 10 feet. My understanding of that 10 feet was people need to get around the house for maintenance, things like that. Say in this particular type of location here, it's up against the retaining wall, and so you can see on sheet number 2, that will be all up against the retaining wall. There's no such need for that getting up against the house there, and frankly, I think some planting up against the retaining wall actually will create other little potential other little ecosystems, more sheltered areas in there. We have, bayberry and things up against there, which could be good spots for some other wildlife. So we do have 622 square feet of native planting proposed here. I think when they get down to this, all I've drawn is, what's within your jurisdiction. They will put more in there just because a little point like that is kind of odd. Aside from that being within 10 feet of the house, right at that point. I think this meets your requirements. It's frankly building a little more bluestone patio in that area, not going to devastate any ecosystem, and this planting here will be of some benefit. So that's the, do you have anything you'd like to say, Mike? Anything you'd add? This is Mike Duffany.
I'd like to thank you for your indulgence, as I couldn't be here earlier, so thank you very much for that. Michael Duffany, I'm the contractor that works for these folks here. They're very much contained in this upper portion of the lot, and this is where they live. So in the beginning, we tried to minimize what they needed. They'd like to have a little bit more to be able to function there. And again, you can see by the pictures that they're not really going to get outside the boundaries there. They're very much contained by all of it's fenced in, walls and so forth, and it's plateaued so that the runoff is all contained. So certainly appreciate your consideration.
Thanks, Mike. Jen, any questions? Or do you want to pass it to the board and
Two comments.
We'll circle back.
2 comments. One, with all due respect to Mr. Duffy's comment, there's nothing minimized about this project, Mike. I understand what you're saying, that they're in here, but the applicant has pretty much maxed out absolutely every square inch of the property within the commission's jurisdiction that they possibly can. So now they want to increase the patio, and we're faced with putting the required mitigation, tucking it in here, smushing it in there, and I understand what they're trying to do. I understand it was approved at the original hearing. These types of planting schemes are just discouraging the staff. That's all. As far as the mitigation plantings along the wall, Tom, you tried to make a really good argument about the mini ecosystems. That was good. I like that argument. That was creative. I understand what you're trying to do.
Not necessarily that we buy it, though.
I don't like mitigation plantings up against the house. One, because of maintenance. That's one reason. 2, they turn into foundation plantings. They're manicured. They're not really allowed to grow into their full and mature form. That's another reason. And although this is a very site-specific, we look at each project in a very site-specific manner, approving something like this is the way the regulations start to get manipulated, interpreted, and I just am not comfortable with that. I don't have a problem with the patio. I really don't. It's the mitigation. But those are my only comments. I mean, it's really not going to be any more detrimental to the environment out there than the current structure. So.
Michelle?
No questions.
Courtney?
I want to echo a little bit of what Jen says. We look at buffers and we're trying to create habitat. We're trying to create. The word buffer means a shield that protects our resources, and so when yes, within the regulations as drafted in the strictest terms, yeah, you can squeeze these little things in, but they don't really perform the task of a real buffer.
Exactly correct.
And I mean, logically, if you were going to try to create a real buffer, you'd plant along the top of that retaining wall, which clearly, from their standpoint, wouldn't be terribly desirable because it would block their view and all of that. I also look at the reality of, you're talking about bayberry those of you who are familiar with plants better than I am, if a bayberry, if we're saying you can't prune these things and so forth, it's my understanding that bayberry goes to like 8 feet tall. It's big, and it's, am I correct? So, you know, here's this thing that's gonna fall all over the patio unless in the normal course of things, you're there whacking at it. And again, that runs kind of counter to what the function of a buffer is. So I understand where you're going with it, and I agree with Jen. You know, putting a patio there is a practical thing, and it doesn't give me a heart attack. But how do we make it work to satisfy our regulations, not only in the sort of square foot calculations, but as a workable buffer? That's
In
what
reality, how do we make
Yeah.
it work? I mean, it looks great on paper, but how do you make it work?
Yeah, exactly. And I would have concerns about, you know, the plantings that you're putting next to that patio. If you got a bayberry that grows 8 feet tall and wants to spread out, you're not gonna have much of a proposed patio, or even a real patio.
Or the path.
Or yeah, exactly. So, you know, I don't know whether you gotta rethink this. I mean, I'm not sure, you know. I'm thinking out loud. I'll pass it on to the rest of the board.
Tom?
When I walked onto the property, I was pretty impressed on the human activity is contained directly around the house. When I walked down the paths, I didn't see extensive cuttings and typical things that just happen when you see structures like this. And there's some heather and heath over here, off this other path over in here, and there's hognose snakes, and there's black racers over in there. I have to give credit in my mind that it is this footprint on a large lot, that their activities are here. The buffers are not going to function as what we would normally have, but that's not to say that they wouldn't invite certain eco-friendly residents. And as far as a path and such, it's lawn now, they're gonna maintain it as a path. We allow paths to, and if they maintain it like they do here, they're gonna be fairly conservative with what they do. You know, the behavior that I witness on other things, the non-encroachment around the chain link fences and the non-going up the bank and putting things over here. I don't know these people, but I looked at the property as good stewardship. It wasn't expansive. It was something that would not be permitted today because of the different buffers. But what's in here, you know, and that's even along the stairways and going down to the path, carrying things. People have a tendency to want more and more elbow room. I did not witness that. So when I see these areas here, I think that they're going to be creative. And it does expand somewhat over here where the black racer was. And then,
Racers are cool.
yeah, you know, I think that that's, and if it's up against a stone wall, you're going to have all kinds of critters running up and down and in it. So, you know, it is one way to satisfy that, and it is a modest and functional addition to the pool area. That's all I got.
Mike?
I view it as a very modest, as it's been said. No further comment.
Mario?
I think I'm missing something here. I mean, the patio expansion is entirely within a lawn area,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So we're losing lawn, and I always thought that was a good thing when you lose lawn.
Oh, it is, it just,
Yeah, but
like
lawn
I
is
said, we
better
don't have
than-
an issue with the
lawn is
patio,
better
it's
than
the way the
patio.
buffer regs are written.
You
and-
don't fertilize the patio. You fertilize lawns.
Not
Yeah.
everybody fertilizes. They're not supposed to be fertilized.
Usually when they're nice and green, they fertilize, so. I don't-
Falmouth friendly.
So it's the location of the mitigation plantings, that's the problem?
It's the placement of the mitigation plantings. One of the things that the staff has concerns with in other projects is the maximizing the use of these sites and mitigation plantings running up in skinny rows up and down, you know, up the boundaries of properties just so they can make the square footage. And as Courtney stated, they don't become functioning buffers, and that's the whole point of the regulations, is functioning buffers. This is one of the reasons we changed the regulations. So these types of situations weren't happening. They're like little islands of mitigation planting somewhere, and they almost become landscape features as opposed to a functioning buffer. In this case, like I said, the area within jurisdiction is just so maxed out on this property. You know, there really isn't room for them to do anything. They put the plantings further back, they're outside of our jurisdiction. And then the board has no control on them. Like I said, it's not the patio I have the heartburn with, it's the placement of the mitigation and the way they're done. But, I mean, that's just the nature of having the use of the property the way it is.
Tommy?
So there is no room to move the mitigation closer to the resource, further away from the house, and still get the 311 feet of patio?
They could put it on the lawn on top of the retaining wall.
The only other place you see here that Courtney said is up on top of the wall, which I agree could act as a buffer to stormwater runoff, but it wouldn't be much of a buffer as far as wildlife habitat because it's on top of a double-tiered retaining wall.
So
right.
it's,
where this back here, I mean, I would say I have to agree with Tom Corvo on this one, where it would be a nice little place for critters against that stone wall.
you're
But
gonna
this
stay
is, I
on
mean,
that argument, huh, Tom?
yeah.
Either
Keep breathing life
make
into
it
it.
Keep reinforcing that argument.
Tom, make it a whole clump. Put the path either along the stone wall and then have a clump of vegetation.
Either way,
I mean,
the staff understands my concerns. Tom and I talked about this morning. It's just, you know.
I could do that. I just thought this, I mean, there's a connection, and I agree, this stuff is not in your jurisdiction, but, you know, some of that's separated by a 4-foot wide path.
Yeah, you should always try to have
close.
buffer closest to where there's
Other vegetation.
vegetation. So put the path along the stone wall. Move that clump up. That would.
I could,
But then that's in the existing lawn beds.
So's the path. The path is in the lawns. So move
Yeah.
that
So,
up.
I mean,
So that makes this whole clump one continuous clump that's
Yeah,
up
I
against
mean-
the rest.
You see, Mike, you understand.
See what I'm saying?
Take those 3 pieces and smush them
Yeah, and
together.
just smush them against the other. And just walk around.
Now, how
What
realistic
about,
do you think
what about the stuff, the 218
yeah, that's
square
what
feet?
Mike.
I mean, I'm concerned about that, simply because the reality of it is, when it starts to grow to its natural height,
Yeah, I'm
it's
concerned
gonna,
about that too.
yeah, it's
But-
gonna get whacked, so why not take that 218 square feet, or at least a good chunk of it, except further away from the patio, either shift it around in there, or pack it in with the stuff on the other side, so it's all clumped together.
What's this?
Mike, I really wish you'd come in under amendment on this one.
What's
You and I discussed
Yeah, I
this
mean-
one, I tried. I tried everything.
Well, I can respond against the patio. If you see in this picture, there's
There's vegetation there.
daylilies enough, and frankly, I think it was in the narrative, proposing to take that ornamental bed and move it closest to the patio and put the
So you'll
put the
swap, yeah,
mitigation
you'll swap it,
plantings
so you'll have an
against the existing
ornamental bed of
Higher
daylilies
vegetation.
between the mitigation, that's fine.
Yeah,
Why don't they plant
Yeah,
that
but the,
with?
swap, pull the daylilies and everything up against the patio.
Go like this,
And-
Betsy.
so, yeah, I'm just concerned about that, I
Where
don't
the
know.
sweet fern is?
No, over here, they're talking.
Yeah,
On-
I'm
All the
I'm
ornamentals
concerned
swamp
about looking
neck
at,
and the buffer planting
nice
back
little
in there.
bayberries that are, you know, this high when they're put in the
Oh,
ground,
you're gonna leave
and
the
they grow in a
ornamentals?
few years to be 8
The
feet
ornamentals
tall.
will be out with the
Well, we
mitigation
know
plantings
they
supposed
won't get to 8 feet.
to be behind
Well,
that.
4 to 6 feet.
Corey, in that picture, that's what's there now. I mean, those are bayberries that they planted, and they are, you know, right behind the daylilies or whatever else is there, and.
So pull the daylilies up to the patio.
Right.
That's what he's saying, Ben. It was in the
All right.
That's what I had
narrative.
in the narrative, but
And
it didn't
clump
explain it fully on the
clump
drawing.
the other part. together.
Tom, give me a revised plan.
Because it's a
tomorrow.
nice, right now, it's a nice area
Oh, it's
between there and the
beautiful.
road.
It's a beautiful
You
property.
know, for
It is.
mitigation, with a
No,
mitigation.
no, it's nice.
And that was planted, as you probably know, that there was nothing there.
Yeah.
All these plants we planted, so.
No, I know.
So the owners aren't, they're not
No,
chopping
no,
back,
it's,
so if we swamp them, then they won't get chopped back.
Yeah,
'Cause
perfect.
the daylily will be
Fine.
in the forefront,
So you know what we want?
yes.
We have enough information, let's close it.
Make a motion to close and take it under advisement.
Second.
Thank you.
All in, oh, the other three of you in the audience, do you have a question? No questions. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table to close the hearing and take it under advisement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom, thanks,
Thank you.
Mike.
Tom.
Mike,
Bye,
come
Mike.
visit us more often?
Thank you. Under amended order.
yeah, I didn't imagine it.
Madam
I'm
Chairman.
so
I'll be
bummed.
recusing myself. So-
Susan, you got this? Okay.
This goes a week.
We're down on Quistit.
Request to amend the existing order of conditions, 282 Quistit Avenue, nominee trust, care of Joshua Bernstein, trustee, 282 Quistit Avenue, Woods Hole, request to amend existing order of conditions, DEP 253677, to remove invasive tree, shrub, and vine vegetation, replant with native vegetation, and for future control and management of the vegetation community. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I will save any of my comments or questions till after Jen's presentation.
Jen, good evening.
Good evening.
Haven't you had a nice evening here?
It's been a very entertaining evening. I haven't been to Falmouth for a while, so thank you.
It's always entertaining, isn't it?
For the record, Jennifer Exner from Wilkinson Ecological Design. I'm here representing the property owners of 282 Quistit. I'll keep it brief as I know we're getting late into the night. And just give a recap for those commissioners that were not here when this project was originally brought before you. This project was originally permitted in late 2010. The initial project involved the construction of the single-family dwelling and the surrounding living areas, most of which are outside of conservation jurisdiction. All of that construction work has been previously completed. They're occupying the house as summer home. The land management plan and restoration plan that were approved along with that original permit were implemented right away after the order was issued, recorded, et cetera, in the winter of 2010 and 11, and that was to treat and remove invasive species and restore the coastal bank. Last summer, I paid you all a visit and gave you a short slideshow presentation documenting the success of the project to date. All of the follow-up and ongoing land management activities that were originally permitted have been executed and are all up to date and are continuing just as you would expect. The commission did place a special condition on this permit to be a 5-year order of conditions. We are here tonight essentially to request an amendment to the existing order to allow for the treatment and removal and restoration of the remaining invasive species on the property. There's no construction component or anything of that nature along with this amendment request. It is simply to manage invasive species and to restore the area. To summarize, the invasive species still remaining on this property include Japanese knotweed, shrub honeysuckle, porcelainberry, oriental bittersweet, sycamore maple, privet, vine honeysuckle, gray willow, garlic mustard, and many other aggressive weedy species. Those of you that were on the commission when the original proposal was before you may remember that the master plan for the property also included the conversion of much of the existing Cape Cod lawn, which had historically been mown and maintained as such, to a naturalized meadow. Even though that was not something that was put into that permit or to that request, regardless, over the past year and a half, that transition has occurred, and most of the property outside of the permitted use areas up by the lawn has been allowed to naturalize. That was something that was done on the property owner's volunteer accord, essentially. So with this proposal, because that has gone to a naturalized meadow community, We would like the ability to complete an annual mowing to discourage any woody vegetation and to keep the meadow as an herbaceous community. We're also asking you to approve ongoing selective treatment of invasive species as without that area being maintained as a lawn, we do have invasive plant sprouts and seedlings that are coming up through as has been released. You can see from the restoration plan submitted that we are proposing revegetation of the area, of the knoll area is what I've termed it for lack of a better term, I guess, where we have the highest concentration of invasive species. This is where the large stand of Japanese knotweed is growing, as well as a myriad of other things along the bank. That area, as the whole property was at one time a part of the historic Webster estate, that area was originally a lookout over the harbor. There, I think on the plan, there still shows somewhere among knotweed, there is a small path that I think was delineated by some very small bluestone pavers. The similar is what you see for the easement access coming down the lawn. So all we are looking to do, the very top of that little knoll is still an herbaceous community. There's no woody shrubs growing up there. So with the treatment of the invasive species, we're just hoping to be able to continue to maintain that historic path to the top. With our original proposal, or as you saw with the original proposal, we have submitted another land management plan to cover this piece of proposed work. It includes all of the same sections as what you saw and approved previously, with various protocols and descriptions of the work. We are already completing monitoring reports for the property that were special conditioned along with that original permit, and we would include this new area of invasive species management along with those monitoring reports. The one kind of crossover between this proposal and the one that you previously approved. With that first approval, there were 15 tupelo trees that were planted along the coastal bank. Last year, we did have to replace a number of them. They were damaged, and there was also a little blip with the irrigation. It was not on our radar. So between that and the stress coming through the season, we did replace them. One location in particular has proved to be a little bit more problematic. The tupelo that, as you would expect, in the more sheltered locations behind the boathouse and where it's behind that early successional community of cedars, all are doing very well, and they've come through very easily. The one in particular we have had a little bit of issue with, so we are proposing, we're going to be replacing it, but we're proposing to replace it on the back side, or at least in a little bit more sheltered location on the back side of the knoll, just because there's landform there, and we think that we can get it established rather than being blasted by all the winter winds that come through. So that's one crossover between the two. Otherwise, the areas are all separate. Beyond that, that is really a quick summary of the project from the beginning and where we're at now and what we'd like to do. So I'll try to answer any of your questions.
Thanks. Jen? Michelle?
No questions?
Courtney?
No questions.
Tommy?
No question.
Mario? Mike? I'll ask you a question.
Sure.
You don't want to come all this way.
I know,
and
I said,
sit through
please,
all
somebody
this
ask
with
me
no
something.
questions. So I walked down there, and where it says existing woodland path to be maintained,
It's difficult. You can't even really see it anymore with
there
the
was
knotweed
there was
this
a reason.
season.
There was a reason that I couldn't find that.
Yep,
Okay.
and it, when the property was, when it was being maintained as the Cape Cod lawn, where everything had been mown, that path had been, basically the knotweed had been mown out of there, but when they stopped mowing
stop
the
doing
rest
that.
of it,
Right.
for it to naturalize, that stopped as well.
Right.
So,
Okay, the meadow looks great.
yeah, it's, there are some European pasture species in there and other things, but it's not, it's being
it's
allowed
nice.
to naturalize,
It's
and it's
nice.
nice, and
Yeah.
the
There was a
homeowners really enjoy it.
Hawk hunting when I was there today, which is
Yes,
neat.
sitting on one of the large cedars
Yeah,
at the bottom.
you see that?
Yep.
Yeah, that's neat.
I did.
So I've another question. So, so where you have these pavers down,
Yep.
that's old, it looks like an old road.
Yes.
Do people still drive down there?
Yes, I believe so, but I think it's very periodic. I think,
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like it's heavily used.
no, don't quote me on this, but I do believe that as part of that easement, that I think there are maybe 6 properties that have right to that easement down in there.
Okay, and they
I
might
think that
launch
it's-
something or,
Yeah, well, I think it's
down there.
conditioned that it be maintained at 12 feet
Yeah.
wide or
Yeah,
some,
there is a
I
dock.
remember something like that historically, but no, it's not very often used.
okay, because there was one section, and I think it's where this first tree is,
Mm-hmm.
as you're coming up from the water, where I was trying to dig in to see if,
A
are
lot
the
of them,
pavers?
I think they're
Are they
all
just-
there.
They're there, you just have to dig
Yeah,
out a
the
little bit.
grass has grown over
Yeah,
a lot
so you're
of them.
gonna try to just restore it back, restore that.
Honestly, there was really no, there was no discussion or, to my knowledge, intent to remove any of the grass to see the pavers again.
Yeah, but you're
But
gonna,
they're shown on the survey.
but you're gonna make it, you're gonna remove the invasives that are growing over that.
Yes.
It's mostly invasives that are growing over it right now.
Yes.
Anyway,
Yes, along that edge, that's correct.
okay, I think it's a nice project,
It is.
yeah.
Did you ever get to the lookout?
Pardon?
Did you ever get to the lookout?
Mike
Yes.
didn't get to the.
I did,
Well, I
but,
didn't try to get to the lookout.
I tried.
yeah,
I didn't make it. Or
I
if I
went
did,
through
I
the
didn't know,
knotweed.
I didn't
I
recognize it
didn't know you were
as a
there.
lookout.
you would know when you
I
were
didn't know
there.
where I was when I got there.
It's kind of a jungle.
He was
I did.
lost.
Yes, it's
Yes.
very easy to get lost in there, but I did bravely make my way through the knotweed. So yes, I have been up there, and that's how I know. I might have included a photo in the land management plan, but if not, I
So
do have one.
this knoll is high enough to justify the effort to get there?
It is, it's a nice little spot, actually, and in some of the, I
Okay.
forget what book it is, one of the historic books that has been done about Falmouth, where they talk about the Webster Estate, there's actually, there was a statue up there at one time, and there was all ornamental gardens along that entire area at one time, so it's kind
Perhaps
of a cool
someday
photo.
you'll be able to take a look.
Yeah,
from the
someday maybe
lookout.
you can get back in
Someday.
there.
Okay,
I'll move to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
was that a question from the audience there? Question from the audience there? Any more questions here? Motion is second on the table to close the hearing and take it under advisement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you very much.
There, tonight, Jen.
Vote orders of conditions. Scott McCarthy, 4 Surrey Lane, East Falmouth.
That is the little deck, porch, they're taking it off one side. They're adding the porch to the back, Surrey Lane, Fresh Pond.
Yep.
Yeah, remember this one.
I'm looking on it.
The neighbor stood up and said something, and then she said she wanted to look at the plan just because she might do the same thing.
Yes.
I remember that.
It was,
Oh, wait, I need a quorum for Susan if she's gonna, yeah. Tommy, Mario, Mike, Tom, Michelle, Courtney. You remember this one, Beth?
yes.
There were no special conditions. Oops.
Okay,
You have no recollection of this one, do you?
No, it's
I
pretty
had written
straightforward.
down
Which one?
trees for the mitigation was,
Oh, trees, yeah.
they hadn't proposed.
So they need trees for every
They need-
1,000 feet?
yeah.
Okay. Okay,
That was all I had.
yeah, I didn't think this was a
it's
tough.
only,
My notes
they
are
don't have 1,000
downstairs.
feet.
It's not quite
it's
1,000.
not 1,000 feet.
Yeah, but still,
you
you
need one?
require it one for every 1,000 feet, so you need one tree.
You're stricter than I. Okay, did you make a motion?
I shall move to approve the project
Tom
as
made a
discussed.
motion.
Second.
2 seconds. It's a motion and 2 seconds on the table.
Make it a third.
Motion and 3 seconds on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. John and Maria Maxwell, 13 Ocean Avenue, East Falmouth.
Mike, form, I gave it to you. Mark was making more patio, shifting his patio around, changing the outdoor shower to an outdoor
Rinse
rinse
station.
station, the new trendy term
Rinse
for
station,
outdoor shower. Basically, it's fine. He's removing pavement from the
Yep.
thing, he was doing this under an amendment.
Yep.
He's
Motion to
removing
accept.
pavement from the driveway.
Motion to accept the order as discussed.
Second.
All in favor of the motion on the table? Before I ask for this, does anybody have any other questions? Anybody? Oh, you can't say anything, it's voting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Before I take the vote, we're gonna vote new officers, and whoever would like to volunteer to be on the
Coastal Ponds.
Coastal Ponds Committee, Tommy, Mario, Tom, Courtney, Michelle, you're welcome to speak up next week.
So we'll do the,
Watch out, Tommy, she'll try to get you to coastal ponds.
All in favor of the motion on the table, which is to adjourn this meeting, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
He's over there going, no, not me.